হ্যাঁ স্যার, এবার ঢুকে যান স্যার। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, জাস্ট 12টা শুরু করবো আর কি। মানে প্রফেসর এস.এম. Rahmatullah sir, Vice Chancellor Manu, he has already joined. Soroshi has joined. Okay, please. Sibsankar, you are mute. Sibsankar, unmute yourself. Yes. Now you are unmute. Again mute. Sibsankar, you are mute. You are not audible. Sibsankar, you are not audible. Prabhashish, Sibsankar is mute. Try to unmute him.
He's trying.
3 minutes left.
অসম্ভব কোনো কিছু করতে বলা হয়েছে যে তার এই ডাটাটা নাই, এই ডাটাটা থেকে আনতে হবে। কারণ আমার ফার্স্ট কোশ্চেন আমি সেট করছি, আমার ডাটা নাই, তার মানে ইনস্ট্রুমেন্টেশনই তো আমার লাগছে।
প্লিজ
আমার কথা সেটা, আমি তো এই জন্য বলি প্রেজেন্টেশন আপনার আরো
ম্যাডাম, ওয়েলকাম টু ইউ। He is the Dean at School of Management, Business Management and Commerce from Manu University. Most welcome, madam.
Good morning. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Where is Sikandar? Acha, Sibsankar? Prabhashish, Sibsankar is there?
আওয়াজটা পাচ্ছি না কেন? সাউন্ডটা খুব কমে গেল।
না, সাউন্ড তো শুনতে পাচ্ছি আমরা। আমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছি, আপনার কথা শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
কথাই শুনতে পাচ্ছি না।
না, আমরা তো শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
আমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছি স্যার ফুল। আপনার
প্লিজ ইউজ হেডফোন or okay. Sibsankar, can you? Sibsankar, are you okay?
Where is Sibsankar?
Perhaps
Sibsankar is out of picture.
Due to no problem. Just 1 minute left. Just within 1 minute we will start.
Namaskar, sir. Good morning.
Morning. Professor M.S. Sikandar, sir. He is the coordinator of this workshop, and as well as the Professor of Manu. So now just 12 noon, we welcome all of you. Today's inaugural session will be chaired by Professor Soroshi Mohanta. He is one of the advisor of our international journal, IISRR, International Journal of Research. He is associated with us since beginning of this organization. Now he is the Vice-Chancellor of Dakshin Bharat Hindi Prachar Sabha. It is an central university passed by the Parliament Act. Formerly, he was the Vice-Chancellor of Burdwan University. He has so many research articles in his credit. Because the member of various committee of UGC and NAC also, he is one of the philosopher and guide of our organization, not only our organization, he is associated with different university administration throughout India and particularly in West Bengal. I request Professor Soroshi Mohanta to chair the session and to start.
Namaskar, good morning to everyone. Now it is good afternoon. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Jack Holmes.
Yeah.
He's yet to come.
So you will coordinate, Asit?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I will say something at the beginning.
Yeah.
You say.
Hello, Asita.
Yeah, okay. Soroshi, Sibsankar joined as a coordinator of the workshop. Sibsankar, a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay. Professor Asit Kumar Das, the director IISRR and the editor IISRR-IJR, and Professor SM Rahmatullah, Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Maulana Azad, National Urdu University, Hyderabad, Professor Dilip, Kumar, former Vice-Chancellor, University of Kalyani, and Professor Soroshi Mohanta, advisor IISRR-IJR, Vice-Chancellor, Dakshin Bharat Introductory Sabha, Chennai, and also the former Vice-Chancellor of the Burdwan University, and Professor Jack Holbrook, Tartu University, Estonia, UK, and he is also the expert of UNESCO and World Bank, and other dignitaries and expert and my dear participant. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the organizing committee, myself, Dr. Sibsankar Jana, the course coordinator, cordially welcome you all in the 8th day virtual hands-on activity, Best International Workshop on Art of Writing Research Article, Tools and Techniques, organized by Indian Institute of Social Reforms and Research, Kolkata, in collaboration with the School of Commerce and Business Management, Maulana Azad National Urdu University. It is a central university in Hyderabad. And one announcement is there, due to some restriction in the number of participants in Google Meet, some may not be able to access to the Meet for this workshop. They are requested to access through our YouTube link already sent to the participant email, and all participants are also requested to mute their microphone and video during the workshop, and please use your chat box for asking any question or any suggestion or clarification, if any, during the workshop. Thank you. Now I would like to request Professor Soroshi Mohanta to conduct this inaugural session as the chairperson. Professor,
Good
over to
afternoon,
you, sir.
everyone. Now I request the instrumental of this organization, Indian Institute of International Institute of Social Science and Research, Social Reform and Research, and the chief editor, chief organizer, Professor Dr. Asit Kumar Das, to please give his welcome address and valuable inputs about this workshop.
Good morning and good afternoon. Jack Holbrook not yet joined. Now in Estonia it is about 10:30 a.m. I, on behalf of IISRR as well as Manu, welcome all the dignitaries who have joined and the participants from all over India, as well as some participants from Bangladesh, some of them from Malaysia and Thailand too. The brief about the participants, number of universities and which state have joined, I request a few minutes after to our technical team, the committee member and the chief technical advisor, Dr. Prabhashis Mondol, after a few minutes. I welcome Professor S.M. Rahmatullah, the Vice-Chancellor of Manu, that means Maulana Azad National Urdu University, a central university in Hyderabad. I am personally thankful to him and his team because I have joined in 1 or 2 programs in Manu. I visited and stayed there in beautiful campus for about 7 days. At that time, the M.S. Sikandar was the registrar, and one of my friend, he was the Vice-Chancellor. That he is now in.
Shakil sir, Professor Shakil.
Yes. I welcome Professor Dilip Kumar Mohanta, the former Vice-Chancellor of Kalyani University, my parent university, as well as he was the former Vice-Chancellor of Sanskrit University in Calcutta, and he is basically a philosophy department. He is working in philosophy department in Calcutta University. I welcome Professor S.M. Hafizur Rahman from Dhaka University. I welcome the chief, he was the chief advisor, now he is associated with us, Professor Jack Holbrook. Basically, our institute was audible, okay. Our institute was initiated long back in 2003 when under the leadership of Jack Holbrook, we have met in a international conference in Malaysia. Then he was the chairman of ICAS, International Council of Association for Science Education. At that time, he had planted the seed within us, and that was now it is in a shape. I welcome him. Professor Soroshi will introduce Professor Rahmatullah sir, Dilip Kumar Mohanta, and the second session, Jack Holbrook is the chief guest as well as is the keynote speaker. I welcome Professor Fatima Madam. He is the Dean Faculty of School of Management and Commerce, Manu University. I also welcome Professor Khan. He is the Professor and Head Management and Commerce, Manu University. We are thankful to Manu Authority, including the Vice Chancellor, because they have given us opportunity. I would like to request our coordinator, Dr. Sibsankar Jana, to open the website of our ISRR for 1 or 2 minutes to know what is our function. Just 2 minutes.
Actually,
Please.
Dr. Das, actually,
Yes.
my laptop is not working. Therefore, I am trying to open again. Now I am in a mobile phone. Therefore,
Okay.
I am trying. I will show you later on.
Okay. But at the time when you will be discussed, most welcome, sir, Professor Dilip Mohanta, our former Vice Chancellor, and today is one of them. So, our 8 days program will continue. Most of the resource persons for the 8 days, they have agreed and kindly consented, give their consent for taking all the travels from different parts of the country as well as from the foreign countries. We are hopeful the participant will enjoy, and we expect feedback from them, and they are requested already. Dr. Jana has said If there is any question, you can put your question in the chat box. I will try to accommodate them and answer their questions. Professor, I welcome all of you. Excuse me, I cannot welcome by name all of you and the participant. On behalf of IISRR and Manu, I welcome all of you. Professor Dan.
Thank you, Professor Das, for welcoming all the dignitaries present over here. Very good afternoon to all of you. Respected Professor S.M. Rahmatullah, Professor and Vice-Chancellor, Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad, our respected Professor Dilip Kumar Mohanta, former Vice-Chancellor, Kalyani University, and Professor of Calcutta, Professor Agarkar, Professor Jack Holbrook, other eminent and dignitaries and honorable personalities from different parts of the country and outside the country attending this seminar, and respected participants. I would formally request our Professor S.M. Rahmatullah, as I have already mentioned, and our Chief Coordinator, Professor Asit has also introduced. He is the Vice-Chancellor in charge of Maulana Azad National Urdu University, and he is the Dean School of Arts and Social Science of that university. He was the former Vice-Chancellor of Sri Krishnadevaya University, Anantapuram, Andhra Pradesh. He held so many positions as Registrar, Finance Officer, Controller of Examinations, former Head Procurement, former Dean Satellite Campuses. He was the former Head Department of Political Science and Public Administration, and he is the member in different academic council, executive councils, and different committees of UGC. He is one of the authors of several books he has published. He has in his credit different papers. He supervised a good number of scholars and attended and chaired so many sessions in national and international conference and workshops. Sir, we are really indebted to you, particularly this workshop has gained a new height, honor, dignity, and prestige because of collaboration with your esteemed organization. And for that matter, on my personal behalf and on behalf of Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research, may I convey my deep gratitude to you and other members of your institution. With these few words, may I request you to please give your inaugural address. Professor Rahmatullah sir.
So thank you very much for your kind words for me. Professor Soroshi Mohandas ji, the chairperson of this inaugural function, eminent research, scholars who are going to attend this session, and participants from India and other countries. First of all, let me convey heartfelt thanks to all of you for attending this international workshop, 8 days international workshop on art of writing research articles, tools and techniques, being organized by Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research in collaboration with School of Commerce and Business Management. First of all, let me say a few words about MANU, that is our university, Maulana Azad National Urdu University. As the name is itself indicating, this university is named after the great freedom fighter, the great scholar, the great eminent journalist, and the first education minister of India, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad ji. And it came into existence for the development of Urdu language, which is purely an Indian language. The jurisdiction of our hello.
Yes. We are sharing your. We are showing your university.
Okay, right. The jurisdiction of our university is all India. As such, we have around 20 campuses of our university in different places of India. So far as the School of Commerce and Business Management is concerned, it is one of the eminent schools of our university. It is offering the program of PhD as well as MBA, MCom, BCom. This is in brief about Maulana Azad National Urdu University as well as about the School of Commerce and Business Management. Well, friends, since this workshop is on the art of writing research articles, let me say that research is the backbone for every society. If research is there, everything is there. And if research is neglected, I think everything is neglected. Furthermore, what is important in research is that we have to ensure objectivity and appliedness in research. If objectivity is not there, if appliedness is not there in research, then the research will be of meaningless. As you know, the government of India under the visionary and dynamic Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji has given a wonderful and remarkable national education policy 2020 to the nation. My congratulations and thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister as well as our Minister of Education as well as the Chairperson of the Drafting Committee, Dr. Kasturi Ranganji. Let me say proudly at this juncture that the committee who have drafted this National Education Policy 2020, one of our colleagues, Professor Kattimani ji, was also one of its member. So in that sense, let me say that the university has got the honor in the form of Professor Kattimani ji to draft this National Education Policy 2020 for the welfare, for the versatile development of our nation. I said it's a wonderful policy. It's a wonderful policy in the sense that, before drafting it, before finalizing it, the views of different persons from almost all walks of the life have been invited and incorporated. And at this juncture also, let me say that MANU is also one of those central universities who have provided input for the drafting of National Education Policy 2020. Well, friends, so far as the research is concerned, the National Education Policy 2020 has laid much emphasis on research and innovation. It has provided much scope for the provision of National Research Foundation, which help enable and support, vibrant research across the higher education institutions, research labs, and other organizations. Now coming to the specific topic of the workshop, that is art of writing research article. Let me say that there are eminent scholars who will speak on it. However, as an introductory point, let me bring it to your knowledge and say that I think there are 10 important points that have to be taken into consideration before writing the research article. The first and the foremost is, it should have an appropriate heading in the sense that it should be eye-catching. It should attract the readers, and once a person goes through the heading, it should create curiosity and interest among the readers with regard to the theme of the research article. The second thing that is most important for writing a research paper is that it should have abstract of the article. It is most important. If abstract is there, the readers will go through it and they will grasp the basic thing that is there in that research paper. The third and most important point is it should have a systematically drafted introduction. And next most important, that is the fourth one, it should contain the details of methods, tools and techniques adopted for conduct of research, including research methodology. And the fifth most important point is it should have contents presented clearly. And the next step is it should have analysis of the contents supported with figures, tables, graphs, etc., as the case may be. And the seventh most important point that is to be taken into consideration, while writing an research article is it should have the findings of the study, including results of the testing of the hypothesis, if any. And the eighth step that is most important according to me is it should contain limitations of the study also, so that it can give scope for further research. And the ninth one, it should have the conclusion and new projections. Conclusion in the sense that the entire paper has to be summed up at the end, and it should contain the new projections also, new suggestions, whatever the researcher want to give to the nation, to the society, it should be highlighted. And finally, as it should have references, bibliography at the end. So I think this 10 points are most important for writing any research article. So with this, I conclude with all the best to all of you, and for giving this opportunity to me to share my some of observations with you, and also for the opportunity given to our university, more particularly our School of Commerce and Business Management, to conduct this 8 days international workshop, on the wonderful theme of the art of writing research papers. So thank you one and all the best to all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
Please unmute.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you, Professor Rahmatullah, for your nice introductory speech, inaugural speech rather. You have touched upon so many things, right from the beginning of national education policy to the emphasis on research, and 10 points you have very categorically mentioned how to write in order to write any research article or any thesis rather. And one important thing you have touched on, that is applicability. Yes, this is the need of the hour. You have mentioned that in the new education policy, there has been specially emphasis has been given. There should be some institutions who will cater to the research primarily. But most of us are doing research for the purpose of acquiring degree in order to get qualified for NETs or SET or to get promotion, API-based promotion, etc. Seldom we do have love for the subject. So for that matter, we have to have our research topics, etc. that should rather contribute in our nation buildings, in the development of the society, human being, and for some other purpose. You have very, in brief, you have touched all such things. Once again, I convey my sincere thanks to you. We have with us another important personality. I have already mentioned Professor J.K. Mohanta. He is very known to all of us. He is a good friend of us. And Professor Mohanto, presently Professor of Philosophy, University of Calcutta. He was the former Vice-Chancellor of Kalyani University and the first Vice-Chancellor of Sanskrit University actually. And he was an associate of Inter-University Center of UGC at Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Simla. He was also awarded the US Government State Scholarship in 2008 at the University of California. He was Fulbright Nehru Visiting Lecturer Fellow at the University of Florida. William Patron Fellowship he obtained at the School of Philosophy, University of Birmingham, UK. Professor Mohanto is a member of Indian Council of Philosophical Research, New Delhi, and Joint Secretary, Indian Philosophical Congress. He is the recipient of John Jackson Award for his research in 2016 at Warsaw by the Society for Universal Dialogue for his research contribution for religious pluralism and interreligious dialogue. He edited and authored 17 books and he has published 17 research articles mainly on Indian philosophy and comparative religion. His research papers have been published in different journals of philosophy in India and abroad. He has delivered several lectures on invitations in different universities within and outside the country, particularly in USA, UK, Poland, Greece, China, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Sir, may I request you to give his inaugural speech on this occasion and formally inaugurate the 8-day workshop on art of writing research articles. Professor Mohan.
Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon to all of you. Professor Dan, Professor S.M. Rahmatullah, the Honorable Vice-Chancellor of Maulana Azad National University, Professor Jack Holbrook, Dr. Orshid Das, the main spirit of this institute, Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research, and all the dignitaries present here, distinguished academicians and researchers and friends. It's really, I feel privileged to be associated with this institute because of our, world friendship, I must say. Friendship is which we call bandhutha, is a rare quality of virtue. As Professor Da has mentioned, my cup of tea is Indian philosophy and religion. So in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, we see Shraddhavan labate jnanam. Once I translated it with a different spirit, no sincere work will go unrewarded. And our Professor Orshid Das is a symbol of this sincerity. I remember our old days in Kalyani University. If Orshid Das says, yes, sir, it will be done, I was really so relaxed. Our present Vice-Chancellor of Maulana Azad National University can realize if you have such an officer, a commitment. The commitment is nowadays is very rare. And after his retirement, this institution, he has been running with all his friends. And whenever Orshid Das requests somebody, nobody has the spirit to say no. Always we are with you. And I'm very, very much grateful for his all effort to him and all those who are associated with this. About this course, it is of rare type. Nowadays, we all remember in our early days of research. In those days, there was not such training in methodology. Normally, our research guides, our supervisors were to teach us. We used to learn by doing research, how to do research. And now it's very interesting. Always if there is a formal approach and it is available, this is very important also. And he rightly thought, considering the present day need of the academics in higher education, the art of writing research articles, tools and techniques. I think that this would be very helpful for not only for the new researchers, also for the old researchers, because nowadays, from our days in early 80s or late 70s, many things, scenarios, approaches have been changed totally. Therefore, in learning, what our Indian tradition says, we learn from each other. There is no teacher, no student. Sahana bhavatu sahano bhunattu sahaviryam karavavahoy, said our Upanishad. What is a research then? It's a researching. It is directed towards a solution of a problem. Recently, we have this, COVID-19 is a threat. Now, it is said now COVID-21 is at our door. So, always we are in a problem. And research, therefore, is directed towards the solution addressing the problem. And development of generalizations, as correctly mentioned by Professor Rahmatullah in his 10 points program of research methodology. I'm not going to details of these, only development of generalization. Theory is helpful in predicting future occurrence. This is important. Imagining a research project, forming new questions for new research projects. These are very important factors. Then how to do all these things. When a new researcher joins, if he has a formal training, that would be very helpful. And we define research as either something new interpretations or new informations. If both are contained in a research, this is more important. The statement of a problem should be reasonable, therefore, and it should be consistent with the known facts or theories, to be tested, found to be probably true or false, should be treated in a simplest possible terms. You should consider also the possibility of absence of falsification. This is an important factor. Failure to include the significance may leave the research valueless. And obviously there is a delimitations of the boundaries of research. Otherwise it will be, directionless. In that way, review of related literature, I think, helps the researcher to avoid duplication and provides useful hypotheses and helpful suggestions for significant investigations. Only those studies are plainly relevant, competently executed, and clearly reported should be included. And recommendation for further research should be included. All researches presuppose an attitude of openness and freedom. This is very much emphasized in our Vedic educational system, where it is said, let noble thoughts come to us from different directions. Anubhadra kratavu yantu vissataha. Therefore, there are some good marks for research. There should not be any guessing to arrive at conclusion. Real situations consideration is important in empirical research. Research results are to be verified by replicating the study and thereby building a sound basis for decisions. It is important that nowadays this quantitative method, what we called in philosophical research, is statistical generalization. Absolute certainty is a myth in research. Research is developing one upon another. The earlier research, when we discovered some limitations of this, is not totally valueless. We are developing upon it. Therefore, research, absolute certainty the goal, but never we can achieve. So therefore, we have to apply the statistical generalizations, which is nearer to certainty. This is the practical way of looking at things. I remember one renowned social scientist, Peter Winch. He says in his idea of social sciences that any worthwhile study of society must be ultimately philosophical in its nature, and that any philosophical study must be concerned with the study of human society. In short, our research nowadays comprises defining, redefining the problems, formulating hypotheses or suggested solutions, collecting, organizing, and evaluating data, making deductions, and reaching conclusions, and at last carefully testing the conclusions to determine whether they fit the formulating hypothesis. But for all these, a formal course is very much beneficial, helpful, and I hope during this period, short period of art of writing research articles, tools and techniques will surely provide us a very sound foundation for doing research. I hope that it may be a beginning and our institute will organize continuously, one after another, with the help of our associates, such courses which has much demand in society nowadays. And that way, we can serve the society in a better way. We are to serve the society in our own way. Everybody has a room for serving the society, and this is one of the best way to serve the need of the society. If we cannot, we speak of values, societal values. We are all have some borrowings, renos to our society. We must try to repay this. And I hope that this effort will be very fruitful one. With these few words, I wish the grand success of the course. I once again thank all of you, my friends here. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Mohanta, for your nice inaugural speech. That has touched so many things, right from the beginning of formal training to conclusion. Sir has mentioned one important thing, to avoid falsification. It is one of the major things in our, particularly nowadays in the era of internet. It is becoming, we have been noticing when it was not that much, such type of falsification, particularly of plagiarism. And one important aspect Sir has mentioned, always when we are going to write something, not even research, it should have certain specific boundary. Otherwise, it will be limitless and we use so many pages. So there should have been some specific boundary, and there should statistical analysis, etc. has mentioned. And for scope of having further research, thank you, sir, for your nice deliberations on this auspicious occasion. So now there are no other speaker on this inaugural session. I being the chairperson, let me sum up. Asit, let me sum up.
Just a minute. We have shown that website of Manu. I would request our coordinator, Dr. Jana, to say the website of ISSR and the activities within 1 or 2 minutes. And our chief guest will say after that, that session will be chaired by Professor Agarkar. Okay.
Okay.
Jana.
I am presenting. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is our.
You can say.
This is our basically homepage of Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research.
I have already mentioned that Jack Holmbush planted the seed at Malaysia, and it has been grown in Australia at that time. Jack Holmbush is there. This is with the civil tribe orphans. We have tried. We have worked with that rag pickers in Calcutta. This is the civil tribe orphans for training in collaboration with Rabindra Bharat University. This is in Australia. Jack Holmbush is there. Mr. Robin Warren, the Nobel laureate. Professor Peter, he was also Nobel laureate in physics.
Okay, now I am showing the journal homepage.
Yes, journal homepage. That is our main activity now. One of the main activities. Our journal is printing and online journal. Generally we published 2 issue, both print and online issue. It is ISSN number. Apart from that, we are also publishing some special issues on the request of different universities and colleges. We have already published in collaboration with Jadavpur University, State University of West Bengal, and some colleges. The papers presented in the international conference organized by that university have selected papers, not all papers, because we have taken initiative to develop our research scholar how to write a research article because of this journal, because we have received so many articles, but content is good, but format is too poor. Even the senior like us, content is good. That's why we have tried to develop this workshop. And as for, we can say, from one university, there was a paper about 70 papers. Out of 70 papers, we published only 30 papers. In another university, there was 57, Sibsankar, about 57 articles. But out of that, we have published only 22 or 23. But because 23. We do not compromise with the quality. We have no processing fee or publication fee. Only the merit of the article is our main criteria. And you, the experts, those who are experts in this workshop, most of them are reviewer of this journal. Thank you so much.
Okay.
For the researcher, we request you go to the journal and there is a guide for author, guideline for author. Click on
guideline. Yeah. Okay, some problem is there.
Okay, leave it.
Okay.
Okay, leave it. Then we can continue. So, Professor Jana, you can come.
Now, whether Professor Agarkar will chair this session, perhaps.
Yes,
I can introduce Professor Jack Halbrook.
Yes.
Yeah. As per the program, Professor Agarkar will be the chairperson of this session. So, before concluding this inaugural session, let me just tell one thing. Allowed to tell one thing, particularly both the former vice chancellors and former vice chancellor have mentioned. And in research article, I have only 2 things to say. First of all, only after fixing everything, when we are ready to write something, first of all, we have to fix one draft title that Sir has mentioned, and it indicates what will be inside. The title should be like this. It should be, sometimes we see that the title itself covers half of the pages, but that should not be. It should be as precise as possible, and it should convey as much as possible. That should be the title. And another one important aspect, when we are students, particularly in college and university, particularly in colleges, there was a rumor that there are teachers who award marks counting number of pages. That's why there are a few students who used to take so many papers and covering and write their answer using all the paper by enlarging their handwriting. But that is not the true. It is equally true. There are some scholars, maybe very few, they are using, Saraj, very rightly Professor Mohanta pointed out, it should have certain boundary. And they always consider if we use so many words, so many papers used, then it will be very good thesis. But that is not true. And I have one experience in one interview, one applicant of botany. He did his research on taxonomy. He came with, and it is usual practice to appear before at the interview with the thesis paper. He came with his thesis with 2 volumes, each volume consisting of not more than 800 pages. So you can easily consider if those theses are sent to the evaluator or evaluator for assessment, how they will consider those theses. So naturally, we have there should be a limit using number of papers, etc. And of course, language should be lucid. We always consider if we use high sounding languages, then it will be a good one. I think that is not true. So I am not going into details. Scholars are there, others are there. They will say. Let me now just only Professor Agorkar. I will just introduce Professor Hallmark. Then we will share this session. So perhaps as because Dr. Professor Das has sent me so many things about Professor Holbrook. I will tell those things, but first of all, I will use only one sentence. Professor Holbrook is not only a scholar, he is out and out a good person. This is his characteristics, like Professor Agorkar also. So, Professor Holbrook is a visiting professor in science education at the University of Tartu, Estonia, with considerable experience in science education worldwide. He did his PhD from the University of London, UK, in chemistry, but he has a strong background of school science teaching, extensive experience in e-service teachers training. His expertise from running in-service training workshops in a range of countries in Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe are quite helpful. He acts as an education consultant in a number of Asian, especially Bangladesh and African countries. His research covers curriculum, development in science subjects, teacher education, formative and summative assessment and evaluation, as well as supervising PhD students in use-inspired research, scientific literacy, inquiry learning, contextualization, and changing teacher beliefs. He has written and adapted numerous classroom teaching materials utilizing a published 3-stage contextual, decontextual, recontextual model, and he has written science textbooks for use in school. He has been working since 2002 as a curriculum and assessment consultant for the Ministry of Education in Bangladesh, and from 2013 for the World Bank on a competence-based curriculum project in Kuwait. He is past president of ICSE and headed ICSE involvement in European-funded FP7 projects, profiles and engineering. He has published articles in conjunction with PhD students in a range of journals focusing on entrepreneurship, education, challenges for green transformation, and also a quantitative study on exploring the complexity of student-created mind maps based on science-related disciplinary and interdisciplinary core areas. Naturally, we are really grateful for having such a person deeply associated with our organization. With these few words, may I request Professor Agarkar to please chair this session.
Thank you, Professor Dan, for...
So, Professor Agarkar, I would like to introduce Professor Agarkar.
Fine.
Professor Agarkar is also one of the organizer since its inception, like Jack Hall Groups and others. Mainly Jack Hall Groups and Professor Agarkar, they have planted the seed within us. That's why we try to develop all these things. And when Professor Agarkar advised me to publish a journal which is needed for the research scholar, mainly the new research scholar, and my research scholars, they have also asked us to publish any quality journal for their betterment and easily available for them. We have also in the initial stage, we determined that we should not compromise the quality. Professor Agarkar, now he is the Dean of BPM Academy of International Education and Research, Thane. After a long career in science and mathematics education at the Homi Bhabha Center of Science Education under TFR, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai. He has obtained his MSc degree in chemistry from Nagpur University and PhD from Pune, University of Pune. He has visited so many countries, almost so far as I know. Every year he has been visiting still now, and he is associated with so many voluntary organizations who have the philanthropic ideas in mind for the rural students, even the school students. He has taken so many projects, and not only projects, now regularly he is teaching them online for the backward students of the remote village. A few days back, about 15 days or 21 days, when I call over telephone, he told me he is in a remote village, so network problem is too poor. But what is the purpose? For the training and hands-on activity of the school kids, particularly those who are backward students, having no facility, no laboratory. He has developed so many science kits which are easily available from the nature, low cost, even no cost. I would request Professor Agarkar to be with us as long as he is, and to chair this session and take on this session.
Thank you, Professor Das, for such a nice introduction, and thank you, Professor Dan, for handing over the chair to me. Jack Halbrook has already been introduced, but let me, as the chair of this session, say a few things about him. I first met him 20 years ago in 2001 when I had organized an international conference in Goa, India on science and mathematics education. Since then, we have been meeting at different places, mostly on the soils of other countries, and we have been, interacting, exchanging ideas, and things have been going on. His chairmanship of ICAS, International Council of Science Education, brought him to different countries, and he has been interacting, giving lectures, advising people, advising education groups, and he has been doing a lot of work. So I would not come in the way of you and Professor Jack Halbrook. Now I would request him to start his lecture, and toward the end of his lecture I might summarize and try to re-emphasize some of the important points that he has covered. So, Jack, it's your turn now.
May I request Jack Halbrook whether your PPT will be shared by us? If we agree, then we can share. Otherwise, I would request all the participants, if there is any question, please put your question in our chat box. after his deliberation, as the instruction of the chairman of the session, Professor Agarkar, our team will raise that your queries. Professor Jack Holmes will.
Professor Das,
Yes.
please ask Provasis to show the PPT. I think.
Acha, Provasis, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So you try to present Professor Jan Holmes PPT.
Professor Holbrook trying.
Oh, Halbur is trying.
Okay.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Professor Azad, for inviting me to talk. And before I go any further, can I just check you can hear me?
Yes,
I
yes,
hope-
sir.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
And I hope with the help of Professor Azad, he is able to show the slides for me.
Yes. Okay, Dr. Provasis, please share the screen.
Yes, sir. 1 minute, sir.
1 minute, Jack Holmes. Within 1 minute, he is.
So thank you, and welcome to everybody.
No problem. It is.
Good morning.
Our committee is
Quite a warm morning here today. It's only -2 at the moment. Snow on the ground and a little bit
Provasis
foggy.
mute. Provasis mute yourself.
Thank you for all that's been said so far, which has given a background to the ideas.
Provasis and Professor Das,
I'd
mute
like to share
yourself.
with you in a little bit more detail. The idea behind this, I hope, is very much to promote the International Journal of Research coming from IISRR, and I've been looking at some of the copies of that journal, which is trying to promote research. And so my focus is very much on how we might be able to upgrade this journal to be involved in certainly social research, but I would even like to suggest educational research. As the earlier speaker said, my background is very much in science education. And I stress the education part because here is the type of research articles that I'm particularly wanting to relate to. So if you like, I'm sort of going to distinguish between scientific research, which is very much experimental, getting results from experiments, and a more educational type of research where I'm not only interested in the data, but I'm interested also in the implications that that data has. So if I can, let me start by showing the particular slides. And if I can go to the second slide straight away. Is that possible? Yes, please, thank you. You can see there with the beside the title that I've very much given a picture of little Estonia. Estonia is a country in North Europe, for those that are not familiar, and you can see above it is Finland, and beneath it is Latvia. And if you're interested in how big it is, then I think if you go left to right, you're not going to go much more than 200-300 kilometers in total. The black blob that you see there towards the bottom of Estonia is Tartu, where I am based. This is the University of Tartu there, which, if you're interested, was actually created in the year 1632. It's coming up to nearly 400 years, in its existence. At that time, Estonia was part of Sweden, and it was part of the Protestant Catholic fighting that was going on in Europe at that time, the university being set up to try and promote education in the Swedish-controlled people at that time. But it has a distinguished record in education, particularly science education. And in terms of, for example, PISA, you know, the international study, PISA, Estonia in science is certainly one of the very top countries, next to Singapore, Korea, Japan, and so on. So with that sort of introduction, let me go to what I want to talk a little bit about. If I can show the next slide. So this is really based on the assumption here that it's educational rather than solidly scientific. So if you like, science education rather than science itself, but also, I hope, taking us into the social sciences to a large extent also. Next slide, please. Here, the presentation, you notice, I've suggested it will cover. So first of all, what I think is a research paper, the sort of focus for it. I've got some omissions in my presentation, and I purposely did that where I know the presentation later on will cover things like ethical issues or plagiarism and so on. I won't attempt to measure those. But I will talk about tools, and in particular, I will talk about research questions versus hypotheses. And certainly, I will want to go into detail on methodology. And techniques, yes, how to compile the actual research paper. Next slide, please. So what is a research paper? I here have tried to give 3 points that I hope will give us guidelines in this. So the first one, as I think an earlier presenter already said, it's got to be meaningful. And the outcomes from it have got to have interest, not only to the author themselves, but certainly to the journal in which it's being published, and of course to the readers themselves. The second point is that the articles, research articles, are more than information or opinions. I notice many articles in the International Journal of Research tended to be of opinion types. And I think for research, we need to go further. And as an earlier presenter said, the findings have got to be new. They've got to be original, that we're into, and presented in a responsible and valid measure. But they can, of course, be qualitative as well as quantitative, or, of course, they could be a mixture of both. The third point I've got there is it's put in a suitable format for presentation. And I will say more about that format later on. And I think if the journal is developing, then if it can follow a relatively simple, straightforward format, that's so much the better. I don't mean that it's an absolute format, but there's a general approach in the journal itself. Next slide, please. So, why write such a research paper? And I think somebody already said that we have a responsibility to actually publish. We need to share the research that we're doing. And in that sense, it is something that is a responsibility for researchers. We need to share with others. So original, meaningful, valid research, as I have said, and as also be pointed out, if there is a theoretical underpinning behind this, then we should be aware of that. It was said earlier that we were talking about the literature that's already been published. So if you like, a literature review of the underpinning theoretical ideas could be very important in an educational type paper. So a couple of extra points I put there. It's an expectation, as I've already said there, and it's got to fit the journal to which you're trying to publish. And there are many, many journals today, as much of it has gone online, and so it's open access. And so there are many, many different types of journals looking for publications. Some are much, much stronger than others. So the article has to be meaningful, lacking in plagiarism, i.e. not copying others. It's concise, but not so concise that it's not coherent. It's got to give enough of a background and where it's going for the reader. The International Journal Research talks about 4 to 8 pages, but for educational research, I suspect that's a little too limited. And I say that because looking at many of the articles in that journal, I notice that they are longer than 8 pages. 11, 12 pages seems to be much more common in the journal. Next slide, please. So the components then, let me come into this, of a research paper. And I'm not saying all of these must be there, but certainly I'm suggesting these need to be considered in writing the paper. Somebody's already talked about a title. I'll say a little bit more in a moment. There should be an abstract with keywords. There will be some form of introduction. I'm suggesting there will be hypotheses in there, or as I will come into, research questions. I mentioned the theoretical background, come to that later, the methodology, the results, of course, associated with the research, and their interpretation or analysis as appropriate. Discussion in an education paper, probably it could be the most important part of the paper. So I come to that later. There's going to be a conclusion, and there may, and I mention it, recommendations, limitations, and certainly we will want to talk a little about references. Next slide, please. So, the focus of the presentation. And again, I stress that I'm looking towards publications for the International Journal of Research. And I hope that what I say here, Professor Asit likes very much, and this will be some help to point us of how we might be able to develop this journal. As I said, more educational, more social science rather than scientific type research. So we need to reflect on the focus of the research paper. The presentation here, as I said, is more educational, and that the articles relate to this particular journal. Next slide. Title. We've already, one of the speakers already said a little bit about the title. I'm suggesting it is declarative. That is, it's got an action verb in the title there. That would be helpful, I think, in most cases there. The title does try to reflect the focus of the paper. And it may well, there's argument associated with this, but my feeling is it may contain some of the key words that you will express so that it shows its focus. But last of all, yes, the title needs to be clear. There. Next slide, please. The abstract. So, yes, I suggest that every paper has an abstract. 200, 300 words is very, very common. I noticed the International Journal Research talks about 200 words. Sometimes that's a little limited if you're going to cover what the paper is situated within, its focus, what it's trying to do with its methodology, what it's trying to find, and maybe suggesting direction of the discussion associated with this. Next slide, please. Keywords. Yes, not too many. 5 very often is considered a maximum, but there's no, of course, absolute there. And these are the key words that are going to come up within the paper, what the paper is really trying to have a look at in the paper itself. There is no absolute how the keywords are presented, but many journals suggest they're presented alphabetically there. And when I use the word keyword, it could, of course, just be a phrase. For example, science education, I would take as a key word, and that could be put as the focus of the particular article. Next slide. So, the introduction there. Important part of the article. I'm suggesting it sets the scene. So it's trying to get into the situation where this paper fits within the whole research realm that it relates. It provides a little bit of a background, a concern, a problem type of background perhaps, associated with where the article is going. So the introduction can very well start very generally, very internationally, and slowly bring the focus down closer to the area of the particular research. In other words, it provides a bit wider background than what the paper is, and as I've said already, sets the scene in what we're getting. And it leads to the goals of the study. What the research is about is going to follow that introduction. So, for example, with our research students here, we try to get them to write a problem tree that starts with a very open problem, very big problem, and tries to narrow down so that it gets to the particular research. In doing so, there may be more than one branch taking it down, and hence why I'm using the word tree to illustrate how that introduction might develop. The introduction is not long. 2 pages, 3 pages absolute maximum, but could be shorter. Depends on what the article is focusing on. Next slide, please. References can be included in the introduction so that you don't go into the background in so much fantastic detail. You can reference from others on that. And of course, the references are given in the style that the journal prefers. I give 2 examples there. If the research authors are given in the text, then example A is an example there of one that I have written. And if the reference is given after the sentence in brackets, then of course you change the style slightly. I think you can see there that in the text it tends to use A and D for and. When it's in brackets after the sentence, then it's got the ampersand symbol instead. Next slide, please. So the aim of the research, what is the research about, follows this introduction in many cases. The literature review could get tied up in the introduction. In some journals, they have this style, and so there'll be much more on the literature review before you get to the aims. So it depends on the style of the journal. But in the style that I'm advocating, introduction to the aims and literature research follows on. So APA style of references associated with the aims I've got there. I've already said that, haven't I? So I don't go into that again. The aim, I should say, however, could be put forward as a hypothesis or hypotheses. Fairly recently, I just came across a journal that had 10 hypotheses in it. That's very unusual. Usually there's 1, 2, maybe 3. But of course, instead of hypotheses, you could have research questions, and there 1, 2, 3, fairly rarely 4 coming through. Next slide, please. So these research questions or hypotheses that I've got there. If it's a research question, I want to say a bit more about research questions. It usually begins with a what or a how. It's a question in those two formats. But of course, you need to be very careful in the way you format a research question, that it's not a yes or no answer to it. It's not, certainly not what we're intended there. So it's trying to suggest what it is you're trying to achieve. And it could be used in a quantitative study or in a qualitative study, of course, and in mixed methods as well. And I give you 2 examples here to show how complex they may be. Both of them are done by research students here at the University of Tartu. To what degree of complexity do students conceptualize selected science curriculum related disciplinary and interdisciplinary core ideas? So you can see it's quite complex and uses the term a core idea, which of course could be subject related, it's disciplinary, or it could be interdisciplinary, for example, problem solving, decision making. We could talk about them as core ideas. The second research question there, what science knowledge dimensions related to a set of specific disciplinary and interdisciplinary core ideas are captured in student-created mind maps? You know, so the idea is that the students create diagrammatic little maps, mind maps, or concept maps. If you label along the arrows linking the terms, is what's intended there. Next slide, please. So, in a research questions, we've talked about what it is we're wanting to achieve, whereas the hypothesis, by and large, is a statement in terms of quantitative research. It makes a prediction or a conjecture, I've said there, about the outcome. Research questions didn't, but that's what the hypothesis does. And basically, it fits with quantitative research. You're making a guess or you're making a prediction and you're trying to find out the outcome from that. Next slide. So putting it a little bit more detail, the research question, qualitative research I'm suggesting is going to have a research question. Most science education journals publish and use research questions. I can't say other journals in general because I'm not so familiar as I am in the science education field. The research questions draw attention to the implications of the research. So it's not enough to give the answer to what the research, that is, you carry out the analysis or just give the results, it needs to give implications as well. On the other hand, the hypothesis, more for quantitative studies, based on one or more hypotheses, but it tends to be limited in its scope because you're really trying to say the hypothesis is or is not accepted. Next slide. So, another example here of science education research, and here are 3 research questions within one paper, just to give you an idea of how they might fit together. I don't know whether I should read all of them there, but you'll see that they are fitting. The first one starts with a how. How effective is the developed method for using core idea maps now to support students' meaningful learning, measured through perceived self-efficacy in the experimental group. You can infer from that that it's research that has an experimental group and a control group. So that refers to the experimental group, whereas the second research question refers to both groups. What differences occur, in meaningful learning? However, you need to define that, and the research would have to go into what it intends by that. Through perceived self-efficacy, yes, it's perceived by the students themselves, so it's not self-efficacy per se, it's how it's perceived by the students that you're measuring, because you need a measuring instrument to do so. And the third research question, what are students' and teachers' perceptions, again, because you can't get the actual, of the developed method for supporting students' meaningful learning? So it's about the teaching is the third part. And I thank one of our research students here for those research questions that have been, I think, published in a paper. Next slide, please. So now, hypotheses and examples, so that we're comparing these there. And here I've given 3 of them for you, and I think you're familiar with this type of hypothesis, so maybe I just read the first one. There is no significant difference in attitude towards e-learning between male and female undergraduate and postgraduate students. And I think I've taken that hypothesis from one of the papers that was published in the International Journal of Research. So you can see that it's simpler in a way that it gives the hypothesis and either it's correct or it's incorrect, and the research will be carried out to answer that. Next slide, please. So a theoretical background. As I said before, if the research questions, hypotheses come first, then we have a separate section called the theoretical background or background, depending on the journal. Some journals, as I said, it will be integrated more into the introduction. But its purpose, as I'm suggested there, is to give the background, give theoretical ideas in particular there. And so terms being used, like core ideas I've just mentioned earlier, would need to be defined. And they would be defined by reference to what the literature actually says. But an in-depth conceptualization is not really intended unless it really supports the research that you're doing, and it would then certainly be in its own separate section or subsection within the article. So if you'd like, educational research is slightly different to scientific research here, in that this was probably more extensive in providing the considerations, the theoretical considerations being important in educational, science educational, social science education type research. Points to consider: definitely the definitions have got to be meaningful, you've got to have enough, so references behind them. The background with the literature is appropriate. And the third point is getting the references up to date. And by up to date, I'm really talking in certainly the last 10 years, if not the last 5. Going back 20 years, sure, it will be there in some cases, but that shouldn't be the major focus there. When you go back to theoretical ideas, Bloom's taxonomy, for example, or other particular ideas coming on self-efficacy, Maslow's triangle theory of needs, then of course they go way back in the literature, and of course they got to be there if that's your background. Next slide, please. So the methodology, and here now I need to break this down because this has got to tell us the details associated with the research in sufficient detail, really, that it helps somebody to carry out a similar type of research if they so wished there. So I'm suggesting 5 parts associated with the methodology, and I put them in a sequence that I suggest that they should appear. It's not an absolute yet again, but I think it's a meaningful order to put forward. First of all, then, samples. How many students did you use, or how many teachers, or whoever the sample is, where they are, and so on and so forth. I think this is fairly common, and the international journal research articles certainly give this information. The second I've called instruments, but you may use the term tools that are developed. So any questionnaire or any test or anything like this is given there, information associated with it. Usually the actual questions in a test are not given in the paper, but it's really a choice there. If you start giving the questions there, then of course you lose the copyright associated with them. Other people can use them. But if you've taken them from the literature, you may choose to include. Data collection, yes. How did you collect the data? How did you do it? Gives background information associated with that. The same with data analysis. So you collect the raw data, then how did you process it? And what instruments did you use to process, or rather what computer procedures, if you like, did you use SPSS and so on? Did you use Excel? How did you actually analyze the data? Rather than the analysis answers itself, it's more about the way you did the data analysis in the methodology. And of course, if you're looking there for ideas of validity, reliability, you may have to measure Cronbach alpha, for example, and that will be mentioned. You did that in the data analysis. But the fifth part there, I put in bold type, because of course this is important in any form of qualitative research. It's got to be valid, and so there's a validity associated with it. And if you've got instruments you're using, they've got to be reliable. So they're going to give some indicator of how reliable they actually are. And this is quite an important part of education type research. Next slide, please. The sample then. I've already mentioned that. Students, teachers, whoever it is that you're having. And the sample, of course, could be representative, and that takes a lot of care. Of course, a simple sample, as I put there, is probably something like 340 if it's going to give some representation. But if students, for example, are given by class, then it's not simple anymore. You're going to get an inter-class correlation factor. And so many researchers would move much more to a purposeful type of research sample. And of course, the larger that is, the more helpful, the more meaningful it's likely to be. The sample needs to be collected in so that it can be meaningfully analyzed. You need to collect enough data associated with it. For example, if you're interested in gender, you need to know the male, female numbers, students or teachers or whoever is associated with it. There. In the points, you notice that if you've got a purposeful sample, you need to be careful with your statistical analysis that you're doing on it, because it needn't necessarily be sufficiently representative. Next slide. The instruments themselves here, the questionnaires, interview formats, surveys, tests, so on, are developed here. So if you're taking it from another source, obviously you will reference that and make sure that it is suitable to use in your particular research environment there. You need to give enough detail so that people can understand what you are doing in it, and that the steps involved in developing this instrument or portraying this instrument have validity. Students' age may be appropriate, and I'd suggest that when you're taking the sample. And if you, the last point, if you're using a Likert scale, you need to decide whether it's 3 point, 4 point, 5 point. Obviously, 5 point is very refined. If you're talking about strongly agree, for young students, that may be very difficult to do. And even for very older students, how do you decide whether it's a strongly agree or agree? And students tend to differ in what they put there. So you need to be careful with 5 point. With 4 point, you don't have a middle point. So its advantage is that you're forced to give an answer, one agree or disagree, you know, one side or the other. So this is a choice associated with the research. Next slide. Data collection here describes, as I said, the method in which the data is collected. It's whether it is in a written form or it comes through internet and so on will be mentioned. The time for data collection may be specified if it's a test, whether it took half an hour, whether it took 1 hour, so on and so forth. Whether it's all done at the same time, and so on and so forth. So this is in the methodology, not actually giving the data itself. That will come in the results. In a quantitative study, the selection can impact on the interclass correlation factor if you take intact classes. So you need to be a little careful associated with that. For example, the PISA studies identify particular students in a class or even in a school. They don't take the whole class with what they're doing. Next slide, please. Data analysis, again, refers to the method of analyzing, which I've really talked about before, the statistical program and so on and so forth. And the data I'm talking about here is the unprocessed data that you collect, the raw data. I don't think I need to say more on that one. Next slide, please. The validity, reliability, yes. This is important. I'm suggesting the whole research is not very meaningful if it's not valid and there's not sufficient reliability in what you're collecting. And it applies qualitative and quantitative type research. Validity is determining an indication of the acceptability of the research approach in a qualitative type of research. So you have expert opinions coming in, for example. And a more analytical type of research, the quantitative, will itself look for the validity in what it is. If you're looking, collecting test samples, do you have a normal distribution with your sample before you start analyzing it, and so on. Reliability is really the reducibility of the outcome. Or I've said, if it's correlations you're looking at, are the correlations acceptable? And Cronbach alpha obviously is an important measure here, measuring really, to give it its true term, internal consistency associated with the data. In qualitative analysis, you will see other terms coming in. Trustworthiness is often used there, referring to how dependable it is, the data that you've been collected, and what is the quality assurance that's being built into there to say that the data is meaningful. So in qualitative analysis, more attention needs to be paid to the suitability of the type of data you're collecting, the instrument you're trying to use, the interviews or questionnaire, and so on. Next slide. Results, yes, fairly straightforward. I don't need to say much here. The results first of all, I'll give the findings. Those findings are raw findings there, and this could be from qualitative or quantitative data, depending on how you want to express it. If it's quantitative, it'd be numerical. If it's qualitative, maybe numerical, or it could be graphical. It depends on the particular situation there. For the raw data, you may want to begin to process this. You might want to interpret it a bit more. And so, sure, there is tending to be not just give the numbers, but what the numbers might mean in an interpretive sense. But also in the results, you could go further and actually analyze those results. So you now put them through your statistical procedure, measuring mean, standard deviations, so on, tests of significance, etc. there. So all of that will go in the results section. Raw data first with interpretation, trying not in the interpretation to repeat what is already said in the table. That's just making the paper longer. But then the analytical part will follow on from the raw data. Next slide, please. The discussion. So in educational research papers, I'm saying this is very important. And what it is doing here is looking at the significance of the findings, not only interpreting them, but the implications associated with them. What does it mean, this numbers, these data that you've got in your results? And of course, you can interlink what your findings are with the findings of others, with the research of others. So you can interlink it with the theoretical or the research background that you've mentioned earlier in the earlier sections. The discussion needs to be logical. So paragraph by paragraph follows on, and you don't jump about within the paragraphs giving ideas as they come into your mind. It's got to have logic in it, otherwise how can the reader follow it? And some journals actually allow you to put subheadings in, so the discussion could have sections, little subheadings, to guide this so that it is in a meaningful structure. Also, a problem I have here with the research students here, no repetition. You don't want to say the same thing twice, and you certainly don't want to say what you've already put in the results section. So you build on and reference as appropriate there. So the discussion will point out any reservations that you've got, any shortcomings in the finding, so that this is there, and it can suggest whether it agrees or disagrees with the existing literature. If it agrees, you just reinforce what is in the literature. If it disagrees, of course, then you've got to explain why your research is more meaningful than that in the literature. So it is an important aspect here that we need to put. Next slide, please. The conclusion. If you've got research questions, then you've got to answer the research questions and answer them as the research question portrays. So basically, they're one paragraph, one research question. So if there's 3 research questions, 3 paragraphs, and it answers the specific research questions. If you have hypotheses, you've probably answered the hypotheses in your discussion, but if you haven't, yes, certainly, you can give the answer to your hypotheses which probably is just one sentence because it's just answering it. By and large, I am suggesting the conclusion is not the place to give the limitations nor recommendations. They would be in a separate section in their own right, usually after the conclusion. So the conclusion in the style that I'm presenting here is quite short. One research question, one paragraph. 3 research questions, 3 paragraphs. So it's quite short compared with a discussion which really is going into the implications of your research. Next slide, please. References. Yes, these have got to be given, but in the style of the journal. And it depends on the journal. Many journals like to have numbers in the text, and then the number is given at the end of the article with the actual reference. Or in some journals, it's given as a footnote on each page. In educational type journals, however, it's more common to put the actual authors in the text. So when you're referring to it, you refer to the author with the date in the text, and then the references are given at the end in alphabetical order. And as the example you've seen see here, it's given the surname with the first name there, and usually given in the latest APA style, you could give up to 10 references, 10 authors if it's there. Tends to be unlikely in educational type research. So it's written there with the date, the title, and then the journal will follow. And today, many journals now will give the articles a DOI number, and so the DIO number comes in there, and so you tend to give less details of where the publisher country is, or if it's a book, who the actual publisher is not tending to be given associated with that. So it all really depends on the references where you publish in which type of journal. The IJR suggested APA. And if you're not familiar with that, you can look it up. And the latest version is the 7th edition, which has got a slight difference in the way they are presented compared with the more commonly used a couple of years ago or before, the 6th edition. So it depends on the journal, what you actually use. Okay, so there really is my overview of what it is that writing an article for a journal is about. And my last slide, really, last slide please, is thanking you for your attention. I hope that has said something meaningful there, and I apologize if I am too controversial in some of the points here, but I hope that will add to the discussions that will follow on in the follow-up sessions associated with it. And with that, I thank again Professor Asit for inviting me to talk there. I hope I've made a meaningful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jack Holbrook. It was a nice presentation. You have covered almost all the aspects of publishable paper, starting from title to references with many examples to illustrate the point. I'm sure this has begun our session on a very good platform, because this has given us a wider scope of research paper writing, and I'm sure the students who plan to write articles, or even the teachers who are thinking of publishing their work, might have got some inputs from this. As we go along, we would certainly be discussing each of these aspects in more detail, but this was expected to be giving a general overview, which Professor Jack Halbrook has already given. And in fact, I have clapped, and I'll clap once again on behalf of all the participants, because I cannot ask everyone to unmute and clap, but this is representative clapping from our side. So I'm sure there must be large number of questions that have been raised by participants. What we are going to do is, we have assigned this work to two persons from Kolkata, who will look at the chat box and decide which questions should be asked. But before that, let me ask a question to Jack. See, you have a training in basic science. You have a PhD in chemistry. I am also a chemist by training. So you must have written articles in the natural sciences. So nowadays you are publishing a lot in social sciences. Do you think there is any difference in writing articles for natural sciences and for social sciences? Do you think so?
Yes. Again, I cannot be absolute, so you can criticize me. But I think in a science paper, we tend to get the results coming through, and they are the focus, new findings of what we've got. In a more educational, social science approach, the teachers, or we wish PhD students in education to write, it really is the implication of our research that we're interested in. We've got to go that stage further, so that the discussion point, I think, is the major aspect to consider in education, and hence why I was stressing, and I love to hear how you discuss it in your sessions later. Stress the idea of research questions as opposed to hypotheses. I've never written hypotheses.
So I have one more question, and then I'll hand over to Professor Das. And see, Jack, you have been moving to different countries, advising people what type of research should be done, how the teacher training has to be done. I would like to know from you, let us take Europe as one continent and Asia as another continent. So what type of research subjects you consider are appropriate for Asia? What we should do in education?
There is no simple answer to it. The research is obviously in the areas of interest. And of course, rather than just developing a test and getting the answers, we're trying to move the thinking forward. We see a lot of articles come now connected with COVID-19 and how you can teach this online and the problems associated with it. I had an article sorry to go on, but I had an article to have a look at the other day that was telling me what sort of words teachers use online now that they're having to use technology. and they were looking at the technical logical words, the words of encouragement to the students there, and what is it that the students were encouraged to actually do. So they did beautiful research on getting this with a lot of teachers from different universities and schools and so on, got a lot of data and analyzed this very nicely so they could tell you which words were heavily emphasized, which words interlinked. In other words, they associated, whether it's male, female doing it, and so on and so forth. Beautiful analysis.
Yes.
And my question was, so what? What use is that, having us done it? So they found out that actually women teachers used a much wider range of vocabulary than male teachers. But in itself, it has no point. It needs to be, what's the implication associated with it? And hence, that's the sort of thing I'm worried about. In a scientific paper, and you said, did I write any of these? Yes, I did a long, long time ago. When I did my PhD in chemistry, I certainly did, which was on bond energy terms and heats of transfer. So I measured a lot of data and published that. But now all the articles that I'm involved in are science education. And the area that I'm getting interested into is certainly linked to entrepreneurship. And with that, I guess it's related to, development within the society there. So it's sustainable development. And the use of terms like interdisciplinary, not disciplinary or multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, but transdisciplinary. School and the society. Trying to understand and trying to develop that. Hafiz Rahman is there, I see, and he will know one of the students we have that's trying to look into this area a little bit. But the big difference, of course, is in Europe as opposed to Asia, is how to deal, well, in Asia, how to deal with large classes, and then, of course, how to assess on this idea of assessing by examinations, which is having less of a focus worldwide now, looking to go wider than that as you look into the social attributes associated with learning there, the problem solving, decision making, and so on and so forth. But certainly this is going in worldwide, I think, and certainly the research in International Journal of Research is moving this way also. Sorry for the very long.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you for the elaborate answer. I expected it from you. If you
permission, if you permit me, I would request Professor S.M. Hafizur Rahman from Dhaka University, Bangladesh. He is one of the speaker on other day and the special guest. I would request him to give his feelings about this.
Okay, good. No problem.
Rahman.
Okay. Then you can start asking questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Rashid and all our others, respectable Vice-Chancellors and all the members. Jack, how are you? Jack?
I am very fine.
You are very fine. No, you are very fine. You are very suited and voted today. Also, I'm really happy to join with all of you, and so I think this research workshop will be very helpful for the, especially for youngers, young researchers. It will be helpful for all of the young researchers, and it will give very insight about how to do, and especially writing new article. This is important. So thank you, all the organizers, especially Professor Asit, for communication with all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
And I've given you a mission, of course. These
Director Asit to put the question in the nutshell. Asit. Asit. Asit.
Sorry, am I?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Welcome, welcome.
Professor.
Professor Ghosh, welcome.
Just sir, 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
That's okay. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. All group for your.
Please take your time. Thank you.
Sir, I have two specific questions. That is my first question is that, sir, I have come across this statement that don't give much problem and solution part into your abstract, so that your reviewer can go through your entire problem definitions and methodology. Hello? Yeah.
Yes.
And my second question is, in case of review paper, after review, I raise the review questions, it's okay. Then what would be my specific contribution regarding the review paper?
Okay. Very good. All the slides are with Professor Azad. So you are very welcome to go through them, and I'm very interested in any comments you have associated with that. And sure, as the workshop goes on, if I can help in any way in that, thank you. I'm very delighted to try and do so on that.
Okay, sir. Okay. Any other question from the chat box?
No. No, sir, you can continue.
Okay, good.
Provasis, except speaker, you requested other to mute. Provasis.
Yeah. Okay. So, Asit sir, should we now proceed to other speaker?
Yes.
He has already joined.
Yes.
Excuse me, sir. There is one more question, sir, from the participant. The participant wants to know that from where we can collect the secondary data of entrepreneurs all over the world.
I hope Jack has heard it.
So the question is, it is from one of the participants, that from where we can collect the secondary data of entrepreneurs all over the world.
Through obviously published journals. They may have the data as one source, and you can get at many of these journals now through the internet because they're open access. You can, of course, if the data is not there, try to contact the authors themselves and see if they will supply you any data that they have there. If you are collecting secondary data yourself, then of course you can use that as well. So journals, internet, and access to authors who have carried out research using data in questionnaires, tests, so on and so forth.
Okay, I think we end this session with a great thank you to Professor Jack Halbrook we now move to the next session, and we have Professor Ghosh, who has managed to join this webinar after his assignment in another country. In fact, I was a little worried whether he would be able to join in time, but he has done it. I have a very long biodata which I have got from the internet, but then I am not going to read everything. So I in fact believe that the identity of a person should be known by what he or she says. Instead of just saying blah blah about the person, I would leave it to the speaker and the reader. But nonetheless, I would like to say he's an engineer by profession, and he is professor and former head mechanical engineering department, and also a founder and coordinator Center for Quality Management System, Jadavpur University in Kolkata. While I was going through his biodata, I got an impression that he's an expert in waste management. And whenever such opportunities come, he has been putting forth his ideas. He was the chairman of 8th ICON SWM 2018 conference, president of International Society of Waste Management, Air and Water, and the chairman of Consortium of Researchers in International Collaboration. So you can see he not only does work within India, teaches in Jadavpur University, but does a lot of work in international scenario. Just now he has finished his lecture for the audience in Nigeria and joined us to give us inputs on the very interesting subject, which he has taken as principles and ethics of writing research articles. This is the title of his talk, and I am sure all of us will be enriched. So I request Professor Ghosh to take over and enlighten us on the topic that he has chosen. Professor Ghosh.
Very good afternoon. I'm sure that I am audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
All right.
Yeah.
And I must thank Professor Das for his endeavor to organize this very apt and effective session. Not session, it is a seminar for 8 days. I was wondering, and I told him earlier when he was discussing at the very beginning, that is it possible to hold it for 8 days continuously? So he was so confident, and I can see now I heard that around 100 odd people have joined, and the speakers are also very renowned and from different countries. And I must also thank Professor Sudhakar to make my introduction in a very lucid way. I must thank Professor Jack Hallberg, though I could hear his voice only for last 5 minutes, but I was very much interested to listen to him, what he said, because these are all learning for me. However, I'll be interested to hear the recorded voice of all the people who will be delivering. And I'm enchanted to be here for sharing my experience and knowledge and also learning from others. At the very beginning, I like to request all the speakers, the experts who are working on this field, that one of my book is under the preparation stage on writing research article for publication and research publication ethics. That will be published by an international publisher. Usually my books are published by either CRC Press or Springer Publications. So those who are interested to write a chapter, I can send an invitation if you just express your willingness to write. I also request Professor Jack specifically to write an article for this book. However, I'll send the formal invitation to all the speakers, then we will see how much comes forward. Okay, so now let me go to the topic today. You know that why Professor Das asked me, because I am not an expert on this, but when I took as the Dean of Faculty of Engineering and Technology in 2019, early 2019 or 2018 end, so then, you know that 2018, the UGC, University Grant Commission, they published a notification as well as a guideline that the anti-plagiarism and also the ethics of publication. And they expect that this becomes mandatory for each of the universities in India. But however, that has not happened as of today. Even the universities who have a good name in the country have not also, all of those are in the arena of implementation of that particular standard, or rather codes. So what I was interested that let me try, and if we can do it for Jadavpur University. Then I made the policy for our university, and we formed a committee and all these things. So we worked together, how this can be made better. And of course, this will definitely improve the quality of the research as well as publication. I mean, when the quality of publication has to be enhanced, then the research also quality will be enhanced, because you have to have more data and authentic data, reliable data to be incorporated in the publication. So as a matter of fact, we formulated the policy for Jadavpur University, and we started implementing that anti-plagiarism policy 2019 Jadavpur University from 1st December 2019. And today, from 2019 1st December, if any scholar wants to submit the PhD, MPhil or master degree thesis, then they have to go through our specified software. I'm not referring to the software because this is a marketing tool. So in that way, that has to pass the anti-plagiarism software check, and it should not be more than 10%. So 10 and less than 10% of the similarity is accepted for accepting the thesis for submission. And after that, all the procedure of examination and other things same. So that was our starting point to think of anti-plagiarism in a mass scale, in an organized manner in Jadavpur University. And today, in the eastern region, eastern India, Jadavpur University is the only university who has the anti-plagiarism policy to be implemented for all the researchers. And it is our aim that we will be expanding this to other documents whichever will be produced from the research in the university. So I'll now go to my slides. If a presentation permission is given to me. Yeah. In fact, I was sharing the same topic in Nigeria also, but their topic was how to write the research article and blah, blah. But here I'm just going to I'm just skipping this topic. Only one thing I am interested to show that, of course, not only engineer, I am quite sure that there are many non-engineers also from different fields, science, arts, commerce, and all people are attending this conference. So in that way, excuse me because I have written this engineer. So any solution, unless and otherwise it is given in a right format to the people for understanding, the work doesn't have any meaning, because my work should be understood by others and it should be also applicable. So when it should be understood by others, it should be written in words which have meaning, which can express what I want to say. Like the words for the writers is like a brush for the painter, notes for the musician, and so on and so forth. And of course, the research article is one of the very important entity to make oneself established in the international arena in a particular area of research. So for writing an article, there are some steps which has to be followed. I am quite sure Professor has taken all these steps: identification of problem, planning, interaction of ideas among team, goal setting, research, writing, and all these things. But I am interested to put my emphasis on these two. You know that whenever we write anything, including the ethical part, I suggest that use two tools which are very important. Number one, 5W1H. What is 5W1H? If you think of what are starting with W and which help you in any of the activities, any of the research activity, any of the publication activity, then you can easily identify what are 5W. 5Ws are what, why, who, when, and where. And the 1H is always, this gives a very good clearance, very good clarification on each of these W, that is how. So in that way, this is a very, very powerful tool for all of us whenever we are researching, whenever we are writing something. So use 5W1H. And the other is, for any activity, including the research activity, as well as the writing activity, you use PDCA. You plan first and then perform it. So this P is per plan, D is doing. And whenever you are performing, whenever you are planning, check it whether it is correct or wrong. So in that way, C stands for check. And when you plan, when you perform, when you check, you will find that there are some deviations, there are some change which are needed. So in that way, some of the changes which may not be needed, which may not be acted, which may not be done immediately, but as all the activities in our life comes in a cyclic order, A stands for act, which gives us a scope of a preventive action as well as corrective action for our planning, doing, and checking stages. So in that way, plan, do, check, act, PDCA, it comes in a cycle, and my suggestion is apply this in the activities of research and other activities, writing activities, so that you're writing the article, you're following the anti-plagiarism rule will be definitely helpful. So use 5W1H and use PDCA. So now I'm going to the main topic for which I'm interested. I was requested. This is the anti-plagiarism Jadavpur University 2009. This is the policy which we adopted. And these are some of the topics which I'll be covering now. And you know that the standard, or rather the document which I was referring to, is the Gazette of India. And this Gazette of India, which is on the anti-plagiarism, it was published on 31st July of 2018. And our policy was based on this, with some changes, addition, and alteration. But why we plagiarize? We plagiarize, there are many reasons. because we practice from the childhood. I mean, we imitate others, and many a times we try so that we claim others' activity, others' success as my success. So this is traditionally we have been doing for a long time. So in that way, this is the thing which encourages us to plagiarize whenever we do our research, whenever we write our research articles. And it happens because there are many people who are very much disorganized. They write the article in disorganized manner. There is no planning, no data, nothing. So in that way, I am always interested to download some article and take some of the pieces from some of the portion from some article and put it. And this habit cropped up when I don't study much. If I have good study, then I'll know what should be done and what not to be done. But I have to publish a paper and I have to make some 5-page, 10-page or 20 pages. And that's why whatever I can do, I just take it from others. And you know that cut and paste culture, whenever the computer comes into picture, the cut and paste culture has been imbibed by people. And as a matter of fact, it is the easiest way of making an article, making a document very easily. And of course, many of the countries who don't understand English in a better manner, so it is always good that take some part of good English. If I read some good English from some of the pieces, take that part in my article. Lack of understanding, seriousness of plagiarism, that is very important because 50 years back, it was not at all an issue. But today, if you plagiarize in India, the rule is very serious. The policy is very serious that if in any publication or any research, it has been proved that the same was plagiarized, then there will be a punishment, and which may lead to the loss of job, the loss of degree. So that's why one must understand very seriously, very sincerely, very carefully that what is if I plagiarize. And of course, there is a strict academic discipline, it is there, but if there is no, then again it will encourage plagiarism, careless attitude, and so many things. So in that way, see, these are some of the possible causes why people plagiarize. But I am not saying that this is the exhaustive list. There can be a number of lists which includes the possible causes. And of course, sometime what has been seen that there are the case of plagiarism which are done sometime unintentionally. Of course, there are some causes, again, I have shown it, but you know that if there is plagiarism, it doesn't mean that always there is a intentionally plagiarism is done. So whether it is intentional, whether it is non-intentional, we have to be very careful today that one is not plagiarizing. And this will be offensive, and this leads to a greater punishment. And here comes the ethics. What is ethics? Like, it is a practice of taking someone else's work or idea and passing them as one's own. Do you want this? At least I don't want. If I do some work of my own, I don't want that some other person claims that this is other's idea, it's not my idea. So in that way, everybody must be conscious from him or herself as well as from others, because there are two ways of plagiarism. One is whether I am plagiarizing or not, and the other is whether someone is plagiarizing my work or not. So that is more important. So it is a research misconduct. So it means a fabrication, falsification, plagiarism, or any other practice that seriously deviates from practice commonly accepted in discipline or in the academic and research communities, generally in proposing, performing, reviewing, or reporting research and creative activities. This is the definition of misconduct as per the 2018 document of the UGC. So again, I'm telling that today, this has taken such a shape that we should be very much alert that there is no plagiarism in my research and in my article. There are some definitions. I am not going into all the definitions because most of the definitions are known to many of the people, but most importantly, academic integrity is very important. It is the intellectual honesty. It is the intellectual honesty in proposing, performing, and reporting any activity which leads to the creation of intellectual property. So one should not intervene into the intellectual property of other by acting dishonestly in the intellectual property. So in that way, the other things are known, common knowledge. There are, like say, there are a number of axioms. Common knowledge, there are Charles' law, Boyle's law, Kashyap's law. Those are on common knowledge. So in that way, there are some quotes of, say, Rabindranath Tagore, Shakespeare. So these are out of the plagiarism we consider. And the other thing, which is a governance part of consideration, that Departmental Academic Integrity Panel, DAIP, in the 2018 document, it is specifically mentioned that if there is some plagiarism or there is a reporting on the plagiarism on any document or any research, then there is an investigation which needs to be done within the higher educational institute. And we have also instituted the Departmental Academic Integrity Panel, the Faculty Level Academic Integrity Panel, and the Institutional Integrity Panel. So there are 3 tiers of Academic Integrity Panel in Jadavpur University, and I suggest that it should be done in all the universities in the same manner. Source is very important for any research. I'm quite sure this has been discussed, and this will be discussed in detail. So the plagiarism is very much related to the source, because any research or any publication that cannot be done without the use of sources, and different types of sources. Some lady was questioning that where from the data of the entrepreneurs and others will be available. You know that the answer cannot be given by a single word. It is a big thing which was asked for. So it depends on which type of data, which specific sectors, which area. So all these things, because in one area you won't get all sort of data as a source. So the source has a specific definition. Source has a specific methodology to be checked. So in that way, sources are available. There can be different types of secondary sources. So we have to identify, we have to check which source. But most importantly, if I use any source, I must give the acknowledgement. It can be a document, data, it can be audio, it can be video, it can be image. Like we take number of photographs from website or internet or any other paper and put it in, because we thought that the image or this photograph is nothing in my paper, so it has no importance. No, this is also coming under the plagiarism. So in that way, any information, whether it is the form of a data, numbers, text, image, video, audio, in electronic mode or in other mode, it is considered as a source. And whenever there is a source and reproduction, the plagiarism comes. And also in the other rules in India is existing also Information Technology Act 2000. So that is also defining that what is the source and what can be considered as a plagiarized one. When we talk about the plagiarism, we have exclusion. Exclusion, of course, there are a number of softwares which are available throughout the world, but there are only a few software which are effectively can be used. And before I go to the phrase or exclusion, I must also tell you that how and by which way the anti-plagiarism software works. You know that there are a number of anti-plagiarism software, but what is more important, if I wish, because what they do, they have repository, and in that repository, say one software company has 5 lakh articles in their repository. The other company has 10 lakh repository, and the third company has 50 lakhs in the repository. So when I am checking the plagiarism or similarity, if there are 5 lakh, 10 lakh and 20 lakh, my article will be checked with respect to those numbers with different softwares. So the effectiveness of my similarity check will be more if the number of documents in the repository is more. So in that way, the software or the company who is having 20 lakhs of documents in the repository, and if they check the similarity of my article, then this will be the best check which I can get. So in that way, that is the way by which the software, anti-plagiarism software are rated in the market. And most of the publication companies or publishers do use different types of software of their own choice. Whenever I'm checking this into a software, software tells everything. I don't have to do anything. Only thing is that the UGC document told that if the consecutive words from a document is taken, that is maximum 14 is allowed. So if you take more than 14 words, then it comes under the scanning of plagiarism. But with respect to the software, it depends on you. If you become more strict, then you can put, instead of 14, you can put 8 or 10 or 5. That I don't want to take more than 5 consecutive words from a paper or an article, while if the number of words is more than 5 consecutive words and taken from any paper, then it will be considered as a plagiarism. So in that way, the software will give you in the similarity check, considering that if it is more than 5 words or 7 words, that is a plagiarized, and it will give some percentage. That percentage, I'm not going to the detail because that is their calculation they put forward in that particular report. There are a number of phrases which can be also excluded. There are phrases which can be excluded. There are common knowledges which can be excluded. Like if you want to exclude some phrase, then those phrase, there is a scope that you put those phrase for exclusion. Like say, if you check your paper in a particular software, this will show, because you know that Professor Sadhan Kumar Ghosh, there can be many more Sadhan Kumar Ghosh. So in that way, whenever the similarity check is performed, it will take as a plagiarized from some other source where the same name is used. So in that way, this type of phrases which needs to be, like say mechanical engineering department, environmental engineering department, there are many throughout the world. So unless and otherwise these phrases are excluded, this will be considered in the plagiarized or the similarity check. So there is a scope of excluding these things from the plagiarism check. There is another terminology which is called self-plagiarism. Like say, you during a period of the PhD work, some researcher have performed the activity, research activity, and out of those research activity, 3 publications has been done. And now the thesis will be submitted. So in the thesis, many a time we have seen, and we also suggest that make a chapter with that particular paper. But if you put it, because your publication has already been done, and so it is in the list. So this paper is in the list of somebody's repository for which you are checking through the software. So whenever your paper is within that similarity check purview, so that paper will also come as a plagiarized. So in that way, but it is your job. It is not at all plagiarized. So in that way, there is a provision that your publication, which are within the field of that particular PhD thesis, you can put those as a self-plagiarism and exclusion, then this will not considered as a plagiarized document. Exclusion of the self-publication. Of course, in Jadavpur University, we have specified only some of the paper published by the Scopus, SCI, Embase, Index Journal. Those can be excluded in our software whenever it is checked. So in case of this, like say something is published in a conference, so that will not be considered as a self-plagiarism. So in that way, if it is referred to, then of course it will not, it can come in the self-plagiarism, it can come in the similarity check, it cannot be come in the similarity check, because in many of the conferences, the material is not being checked through the anti-plagiarism software. So in that way, the conference paper cannot be considered as a self-plagiarism, plagiarized. Then you know that I was considering the subjects like say engineering subjects, some of the science subjects, and only a few subjects in the humanities area. But what's about those which are written in Indian language? Because you will not find any software which considers Bengali, Sanskrit, Hindi, and all this. So in that way, the thesis written in any Indian language must be written using Unicode compliant software. So if the Bengali or Sanskrit or Hindi, the thesis, PhD thesis or any other document is written in the language, but you should use the Unicode compliant software. There are a number of Unicode compliant software. I have just given some of the name, but there are many names. So in that way, if this thesis or documents are written using Unicode compliant software, then the similarity check of those thesis or documents can be done, and you will get the number, the similarity. But however, you know that one thing I just missed here to tell you, in the exclusion, say you are quoting the some utterings in the some quotation from the Othello, or some quotation from Rabindranath Tagore's piece. So in that way, if you put those phrases within a quotation mark, then this will not come under the purview of plagiarized, because you are putting the quotation marks, and of course the references also will be given. One more thing is very important, that whether it is a word, 14 words, or 10 words, or 8 words, or phrase, not phrase, and also within the inverted comma, each of this one must put into the reference list. So that is the acknowledgement which has to be met in the publication. So that is the ethics of publication. So I was just referring to the different languages, Indian language and others, on which you have to go for this plagiarism check. And this is also very important, because you know that whenever I was implementing the policy in our university, there are many questions from Bengali Republic, because we have an arts faculty, and there are a number of faculties where the thesis, PG thesis, PhD thesis, and MPhil thesis are written in different Indian languages. So they were scarce that what will happen, because we don't have any software and we cannot check it. So in that way, this is the solution for them, that you write those using Unicode compliant software, and there is no problem in it. But still, I have also some questions on this particular area, because in our university, as of today, we have not strictly implemented the policy in arts faculty. But this was mainly from 1st December 2019. It was strictly implemented in the Faculty of Engineering and Technology. But the science faculty is also complying with this. Arts faculty is also, but I am not sure that whether 100% of it could be done by using this Unicode compliant software. Because we have only one software we are using throughout the university. And this was the policy on anti-plagiarism university, and at university, PhD thesis, PG thesis submitted on or after 1/12/19 have to follow the procedure. Faculty of Arts, that time we had to decide. Okay, and you know that what is the main concern for implementation of this research ethics in research? You have to have very, very high level of awareness. Because unless and otherwise there is awareness, there is always an intention of plagiarizing. So any institute and the researcher, specific professor, you must be very, very interesting. It should be a way of life in your university or institute that try to spread awareness and training as much as possible with respect to the research ethics is concerned, with respect to the publication ethics is concerned. And please note that I myself personally was present in number of training programs, and that starts from the postgraduate level in science, arts, commerce, engineering, up to the professor level. And also we have taken up this training with the university officers who are involved in, like, say, faculty council and some other particular areas, and the research project assistant, research scholars, project assistant, project scholars, all those we have included. And in a couple of months, we could include 1,100 people to be trained in different concern. And we have two campus, Salt Lake campus and Jadavpur campus. So we have a team. I personally present with my team in each of the training program, and I participated also in the training program for this around 1,100 people we could train. And now also we are organizing the online training program for our researcher and the teachers. And there are a lot of enthusiasm among the people, because you know that why there are a lot of enthusiasm, because this was the first time that we could make people think that plagiarism is bad, plagiarism is unethical, plagiarism reduces the acceptability of your research, and plagiarism can lead to the penal. Yeah, lot of penalty with respect to cancellation of your thesis. Even there are many ways by which we are now implementing in India so that there is no plagiarism. So yeah, these are all. And this is the thing which we have in our policy, that first you check the similarity of your thesis. The student will check the thesis with this for the similarity and exclusion filters. All these things will be set by him or her in consultation with the professor, the guide. Then the thesis supervisor is responsible to recheck the similarity, and the student will certify that the similarity checked by such and such software is below 10 or not above 10%, and he or she should mention what is the percentage in the report. And then the thesis, plagiarism check thesis with the report of plagiarism check, the similarity check, that has to be submitted to the university. And this is the condition only then. And there is a certificate by the PhD supervisor that it has been checked, and this is the thing. So with this only, the thesis is now eligible for submission. So once the thesis is submitted, then the rest of the rules will be followed as per the university existing rule. But what is DAIP and others, when they will come? So whenever there will be any problem raised by any of the person, either inside or outside, the first it will come to the departmental committee. If departmental committee recommends or resolve that, it will go to the highest committee. If it does not resolve it, it is not possible, then it will go to the faculty committee, and then from the faculty committee to the higher, the institutional committee. So this is the 3-tier, and this will be also active during the period. It started its work. So this is the thing, this is the statement of originality, that I also declare that I have checked this thesis as per the policy on anti-plagiarism, Jadavpur University 2019, and the level of similarity as checked by such and such software is this percentage. So you have to make this percentage signature of the candidate and supervisor's signature with seal and all this. So this is a part of the thesis. And these are all DIP and others. So I'm not going to the detail of this. And this is more or less my presentation on research ethics. But I request all of you, because most of the participants here and also the speakers, they are from different parts of the country, and I request all of you to please try so that the anti-plagiarism policy is implemented in each of the universities and educational institutes, because this will definitely enhance the quality of the research as well as the publication. So with this, thank you very much for your patient hearing. And if there are any questions, I am handing over it to Professor Sudhakar.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh, for such a nice presentation. You have opened the eyes of many, and all of you must have realized that he was sharing his own experience of using this software, trying to find out where the plagiarism is, also explaining what type of things can be excused from the plagiarism and all that. Nowadays, this internet, Google search has become so common, and you get information so easily. And the cut and paste habit has become so common that you can just copy it.
Yeah.
Earlier, when we wrote the thesis, at least we had to take down, write it, or type it. Now it is just cut and paste. But anyway, that doesn't mean we should go for it. And it's a good thing that government, the University Grants Commission has taken a lead. Jadavpur University has taken the lead in this, and we are now in a position to check the plagiarism at the minute level. And it's a good thing that will allow people to contribute something original, and it will certainly enhance the knowledge much better. I'm sure there must be some questions. I saw some questions which were popping up while you were giving lectures. So Asit sir, can you tell your students to raise the questions that have come through?
Nivedita, Ashish, you can perhaps you have jot down the question in chat box.
Yeah.
So far, as I know, Professor Ghosh has perhaps from smartphone he has replied so many answer of questions raised by the participant. However, Nivedita, you can.
Sir, only one question is there in the chat box.
Okay.
That is, how do we avoid unintentionally plagiarism? Is there any way to check my own article of plagiarism? Since I may not be well aware of all sources. This is a question given from the participant.
Yes. Thank you, Nivedita. And the question is from Swastik Banerjee.
Yes.
So you know that unintentional means unintentional. But even if it is unintentional, you have to have an intention to check it whether there is any unintentional mistake or not. So if you put in the software, it will give you a clear picture in a report throughout your paper document that where the plagiarism has been checked as similarity or not. And it gives the color picture as well as the number. So in that way, you will easily find, and it also gives the source, all the sources. And if you click on the source, you will go to the original source. You can download also the paper from that. So in that way, easily you can identify, because you know that for submission of your thesis or paper or any other thing, we have started the thesis only. But I have an intention to consider this for the publication within our university also. So what you have to do is, once you check it, you will find the detail of the similarity which has been observed by a particular software. So then you analyze which are intentional, which are unintentional. I mean, software doesn't understand whether it is intentional or unintentional, but software will give you that these are the similarity which you have performed, which has been checked by the software. So now you identify the sources which you don't need, which you need, and where the similarity is more. Because you will find also there are 14%, 10%, 2%, 1%, and total maybe 25%. So out of that, it will give each of 0.1%, 0.2%, 2%, 5% like that. So always, to make a comfortable and acceptable document, you start from the highest percentage of similarity which is observed in the report and start reducing those. I mean, reduction of the similarity is also an art. You have to write. One is by rephrasing, two is by avoiding, three is by rewriting, fourth is by taking some other idea. So these are the some of the ways, with my experience I am telling, but there can be some other ways. It is not only restricted to this 4 or 5. You have to reduce the similarity. So then you can understand which one is intentional or no point. Unintentional or intentional, you are not to understand. You have to understand that which one is similar, which one is not similar. So that you have to reduce and you can have a fresh. And you can check twice, thrice or 4 times after correction and recorrection. And ultimately you will find that your similarity is very low and this is acceptable. So this is the way. Thank you. Over to
Professor Agarkar, with your permission,
yeah.
I would request Professor Ramani Bodmon is the director of IIRDD from Assam, and he was previously in Guwahati University in the position of joint registrar. Professor Ramani Bodmon, can you hear me, Professor Ramani Bodmon?
He was here, but I think he got up from his seat. I see his name here, but I don't think.
Mohan Chel, our Vice President of this organization.
Dr. Ghosh, thank you for your nice deliberation. I have one question.
Please,
Dr.
please.
Ghosh, yes, sir.
Please.
Now the tendency has increasing even from the science or engineering department to write the thesis in Bengali or Indian languages.
Right.
I think the Unicode that you have explained, whether it is so much effective like other plagiarism checker?
Yeah, you have rightly pointed out, and that was a question from my arts faculty, different professors.
Yes.
And you know that I got the reply from some of the professors that it is effectively working. There are a number, it depends on the quality of the software which you are using. So in that way, there are a number of softwares available in for different languages, Unicode software. So you have to identify which one is better.
Oh, whether your university is allowing the other student or checking the plagiarism?
No, you know that this is expensive. So in that way, in 2019 early July, we purchased this license, and this license was, I mean, we spent around 25 lakhs for 3 years of checking, and that too also we have 100 license. So now you just compare the price. Of course, the price is now coming down. So in that way, many of our students are also now thinking, and we are also thinking that we have to enhance the number of license.
Yes.
So it is now for us only within our professors and researchers, not even for the undergraduate students, only for the postgraduate, MPhil and PhD students, research scholars and professors, I mean teachers, they are only eligible to use. But I mean, with time, I believe that it will be expanded. So university is not open for outsiders to check the anti-plagiarism as of now. And in near future, it won't. And in near future, it won't be. Yeah, please.
In this context, I would give one information. ISI, they have provided outsider for checking the plagiarism against the minimum fees. Minimum fees. My two or three research scholars, they have checked their plagiarism of their thesis from ISI. However, any professor has to request formally the librarian of ISI, then they will give the slot, and according to the norms, they will do all these things.
That is really
okay. Professor Agarkar.
Yeah. No,
Professor Agarkar. Professor Agarkar. I have a Mr. Jana speaking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Professor Ghosh. But one thing, I have an information. Basically, I am from the University of Kalyani.
Okay.
We have already introduced the anti-plagiarism in 2018, and there is a provision of taking the anti-plagiarism certificate from the central library. Okay, librarian issued a certificate that is the anti-plagiarized content is such as percent. Then this document needs to attach to the final, the PhD thesis, so that he or she will be able to submit the thesis. Okay, one thing. And another thing is that basically, actually earlier days also there was some the plagiarism concept was there, but you know, all the documents were not available in the online or digital form. Therefore, this was very much hard to actually detect the plagiarism. Nowadays, our tendency is increasing also, and there is a provision of the so many tools are there. Therefore, it is now detected. So this is vice versa. So this type of things.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Sibsankar. Thank you, Professor Sibsankar Jana. I like to know from you whether Kalyani University has a university policy on anti-plagiarism.
Actually, no such university policy is there, but actually in ISI, they have decided to introduce for PhD and MPhil thesis.
That's why I was just referring to, because we have studied. That's why I was just referring to that as a university policy. There is no university in Eastern region, even the Vishwabharati University. They don't have any policy as a university. So thank you for your information. Please.
Okay, with your permission.
Another question, Asit. Just a minute.
Please.
Actually, when I am going to write a thesis in Bengali or Indian languages, so that is, maybe it is Unicode compliant, but when I take some thought content from foreign language and incorporate or translate it into my language, so there is no chance to detect any software to.
That's the you are right. You are right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir.
So one announcement and one request. One announcement: we are going to publish one special issue on this workshop, and on the context, we would request all the resource person to send us one write-up on his page, so that we can publish an online and print volume, which will be very useful for the students, those who are participated and those who are not participated but wanted to use all these things. This is our humble request to all resource persons.
It will be useful to
yes,
useful to even those who have attended it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Certainly. So now Asit sir.
Yes.
Raman
Asit
is not seen on his seat.
Yes.
So should we proceed?
Now, but one question
one
is.
question to Professor Gore. So, in some sort of cases in Urdu, it is shown that the plagiarism is shown in the bibliography. And not only on that, the plagiarism also shown in the short biography of the guide also. Whether it will be considered.
Yeah. You are from?
I am
from University of Calcutta.
Okay. You know that whenever we check plagiarism, the biodata, the bibliography, those are excluded. So it has to be excluded. Otherwise, again, that will come in the similarity. Right? So bibliography, reference list, and biodata, those are to be excluded from the plagiarism check.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Professor Agar,
no, he is. I think he has joined. Ramani Barman has joined. Do you want to request?
Ramani, Professor Ramani, can you hear me? Ramani Barman, can you hear me?
No, I don't think. I don't think he is there. Anyway.
Okay.
I'll proceed. Now we proceed. We have a speech by Professor Sanim Fatima. She is the Dean, School of Commerce and Business Management of Maulana Azad National Urdu University. You might be knowing that this webinar is being organized jointly by Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research and also Maulana Azad National University. So I would request her to say a few words, especially on collaborative effort of organizing this virtual workshop. So, madam.
She is also the joint director of this course.
Oh, great.
Fatima.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Sudhakar Agarkar. Am I audible, please?
Yes, yes.
You're audible.
Okay.
Both audible and visible.
Okay, thank you. So, Professor Asit Kumar Das, Professor Jack Holbrook, who was the chief guest and keynote speaker for today's inaugural session, and Professor Sadan Kumar Ghosh. Thank you, sir, for taking us through the journey of plagiarism, and Professor Madan Mohan, and esteemed dignitaries, and all those who are all the participants. A very good afternoon to all of you. And on par with the Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research and from Maulana Azad National Urdu University, all the participants who have joined us for this 8-day virtual hands-on activity based international workshop on art of writing research article, tools, techniques, I extend a very warm welcome on behalf of Maulana Azad National Urdu University and the Indian Institute of Social Science and Reform. Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. And before I speak about the topic or address the participants, let me briefly introduce my school, that is the School of Commerce and Business Management. It is one of the 7 schools of studies at Maulana Azad National Urdu University. This university is a dual mode university. It offers programs both in regular mode and distance modes. Coming to the School of Commerce and Business Management, we have on offer the programs as Bachelor's in Commerce, Master's in Commerce, and Master of Business Administration, which is accredited by, which is recognized by the All India Council for Technical Education. And we also have an offer research programs in commerce and management. This is a brief introduction, and there are about 12 professors, and except one, all of them are doctorates. So there's a lot of research activity and other activities going on in our school. And we especially I thank Director of Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research, Professor Asit Kumar Das-ji, for extending this opportunity to jointly organize this hands-on activity based on the art of writing research article, tools and techniques. Thank you very much, sir. From behalf of the school and university, we thank you. And coming to the topic art of writing research articles, tools and techniques. It is so relevant. The topic chosen for the workshop is so relevant in the context of the National Education Policy 2020, which has been implemented by the government under the able leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. This NEP has realized the importance of research in economic growth. The year 2021 will be an important milestone in higher education sector for reforms and repositioning our country as Vishwaguru, as often articulated by our Honorable Union Minister for Education, Sri Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank ji. The NEP aims to revamp the Indian education system to more a student-centric one. Now, thanks to the COVID for the past 1 year and even this virtual workshop, I was just imagining since morning, had this been offline, you know, it would have the personal touch and the connect. But luckily, all the resource persons have done an excellent job, and the Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research, they have done an excellent job along with Manu in organizing and to feel the participants that we are well connected in this workshop. Now, this COVID has made its impact in every field, and education sector is no exception to it. The teachers' traditional approach, delivering lectures in the classroom, has been totally transformed. This online teaching, digital learning are supplementing a lot to the traditional teaching. Now, the teachers have learned the new skills, and how to engage the students in the online class is a big challenge. Now, this challenge is here to stay. Now, we need to adopt a student-centric approach. Now, let me briefly revisit, let us all revisit rather, the importance of research and the importance of writing a research article. And all the resource persons and the dignitaries will agree with me if I say that conducting research and writing a research article or a research paper are the two sides of the same coin. If we want to publish, we need to conduct a research. And conducting a research, let me revisit a few benefits or the advantages to the individual, to the department and the institution at national level and international level. We normally recognize in modern days, the USP of any organization of an academy in academics is the placements of students. But on par equally, we all have to agree that the research publications, like for example, the National Institute of National Institutional Ranking Framework, NIRF, every year it ranks the institution based upon the research output. We have the accrediting institutions like the NAC, National Assessment and Accreditation Council. And for that matter, various grants, the basis taken is to the research output of the institute. So the teachers, on one hand, they basically have a high demand for publishing the articles by conducting research, and the institutions have a heavy pressure on the teachers for recruitment. They are considering the research acumen, the publication part of a faculty member for recruitment, for promotion, and for various others, accreditation and branding of the institution, the research output. They're using it as a USP. Now, there's a great need for innovation-based teaching methodologies for the E8 students. Now we are dealing with the E8 students because the traditional content, e-content, including the e-content, every book has the e-content or the soft copy available on Amazon, and some of the free books where the students can access. Then, here is what then, how do we make the teaching learning innovative? What we have to do is, as teachers, we need to conduct a research on the topic which interests us or in our discipline to be more comfortable, because good research supplements good teaching and the students would be more interested. And basically a research article is a primary source which reports the research methodology undertaken for a chosen area of topic and the result output. How do we convey to the world? So basically a research article contributes to the world of education through the output or the outcome of the research undertaken by the respective author or authors of the research undertaken. Now coming to the, normally the research here, what we conduct is before publishing within the institution, academic research. Professor Jack Holbrook was saying that scientific research is different from research in social sciences and also research in education. Yes, we agree with you, sir, but here we need a collaboration. Now, there are various stakeholders of the higher education system. And for that matter, Indian higher education system is the third largest in the world next to the USA and China. So here we have got a wide scope of conducting research and publishing our research articles. So this research should be a collaborative research between different stakeholders of the higher education system, namely the government, the innovators, the industry people, the students, and most importantly, the teachers themselves. Now, as we have said that the year 2021 is a year of reforms. So in this reforms, the UGC has already given public notice with regard to ABC, Academic Bank of Credits, where the students can earn credits, accumulate them, transfer the credits earned through various institutions, online and offline mode, and also redeem them within a time span of 7 years. So on one hand, we have the Academic Bank of Credits with the University Grants Commission. The apex body of higher education has released the public notice. And on the other hand, the Universities Grants Commission is also promoting the foreign collaboration. So the students, there is a free mobility of students from the degree awarding institutions based upon the credits earned and transfer of credits. So it is here the relevance of research and research publications becomes more important for all the teachers. Then how do we collaborate? What is the basis? So those institutions with a higher research output and teachers engaged in research and research-based publications and teaching will be given more preference, and they will have a more opportunity for collaboration. Now, as to get one recognized as an expert in our field of respective discipline, research helps us. So, but speaking so much about the importance of research and the research article, let us briefly also have a, because the steps in research writing, a thorough input has been given. The three important components to any research article are the research idea, the implementation of the research study, and the presentation. Now, I will pick up only the third component in the light of the topic of today's workshop, that is a 8-day workshop, that what is a presentation? The idea might be excellent, the execution might be excellent, but if the presentation is poor, the very purpose is defeated. Or vice versa, if the idea is not a good one and the methodology is not good, but an excellent presentation cannot also do justice to it. So a good idea, a good execution of the research idea, and the presentation of results, they all go hand in hand. So it is here that I emphasize the importance of the topic of this research workshop. And normally, as teachers and as research scholars, we write and publish with a purpose. Either it is for the appointments or for the promotions or submission of thesis, or basically this should not be a purpose, but there is one more very important purpose which we all, it is there inbuilt, but we do not express, that is, what is the benefit or a research output, impact? What is an impact to the society? and to the nation. This is also an important aspect of conducting research and writing an article. So basically, a research article is a primary source of presenting the method and results of the research conducted by a researcher or an author. And normally when we present our research papers or research articles or case studies or whatever is the form of our research output, we are concerned about two important aspects. That is, how will my paper be accepted or will my paper be rejected? Now, acceptance, there are the usual same criteria, whether the sampling framework is good, sufficient review of literature has been done, etc., etc. And the same reasons, if those criteria are not fulfilled, that becomes a reason for rejection. Irrespective of the acceptance or rejection of an article, as teachers, we all have to write and publish, because I may not be wrong here to say that now the norm is either publish or perish. But to publish, you have to conduct a good research. Like writing is a form of expression. What is an art? The title here says as art of writing a research article, art. An artist, he or she looks at perfection. For example, it's painting or whatever is a form of art. We go on, improve ourselves and do it. So in the beginning, we may get some rejections for our manuscript submitted, but today technology is our disposal. This technology has helped us to make the review faster. 20 years back, when we were pursuing your research programs, we used to go to various libraries for review purpose. But today, sitting at the click of a button, we do a lot of research output related to our research topic, and review has become very easy. Not only review, the submission process, the time taken for the submission process, conveyance of the acceptance or rejection, revision of the article, resubmission, all this has become very simple and in a very short span of time because of the developments in the information technology and the use of technology in the academic sphere. Now, like the ingredients to make a good artist are the same to make the same ingredients are there to make a good writer. We all have to write. First thing is, what is a write-up and a research article? The idea what is there in our mind, what we want to search and contribute to the world of knowledge is nothing but the flow of thoughts or the interpretation of results is the art of writing a research article. And then we are more concerned these days, once this article is published, about the so-called impact factor. JIF, Journal Impact Factor, or the H index. And then to our support, we have many sources of publication. Like we have the print journals, books, and also the e-journals. So it is here that we have we have to emphasize on the
perhaps perhaps any technical error. Just now, she may join.
Okay, fine.
Little bit.
Yes. I'm sorry. Am I audible, please? I'm sorry.
Yes. You can
okay.
Continue. Please continue. Okay. Please continue.
Okay. So I only convey my request. I appeal to all the participants to not worry about the reasons or the criteria for acceptance or rejection of our manuscripts. Have the zeal or the enthusiasm to conduct research and publish. As we said that there are two sides of the coin. Now, with the reasons of acceptance or rejection in mind, it is time to review the basics and general writing tips to be used when performing the manuscript preparation. We hope that this workshop will serve as a practical guide to the art of writing and writing research articles. And then we all normally, something new to be done, it has its own fears and difficulties. But I'm very hopeful that this joint collaborative workshop organized by Maulana Azad National Urdu University and the Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research will give you that input or that guideline to write the research articles exactly in the form of an art. Now, I would like to quote Santiago Raymond here: all outstanding work in art as well as in science results from immense zeal applied to a great idea. So let us all have this zeal with us. Though in the new normal, we are conducting this workshop online. All of you are present since morning, and please do have your same zeal and enthusiasm to participate in all the sessions of the workshop. for all the remaining 8 days. And the best part of this workshop is we have invited articles and there will be discussion on that. And like, for example, sampling, hypothesis testing, data analysis, we will be having hands-on experience. Make the best use of it. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Once again, we extend a warm welcome to the workshop. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, madam, for describing the nature of collaboration, the possibilities of extending the collaboration, and the utility of it for the faculty of your own university. And it was certainly nice. Let us now proceed further. Das sir.
Professor, Soroshi, on the Soroshi, do you like to say anything?
সূর্য বলছেন
সূর্য হাত তুলেছিলেন নাকি
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা
or Professor Chell, can you? Yes, have you any question?
No, my question is that thank you for the collaboration, madam, and you have rightly described the aims and objective of our joint effort. I think there are some questions whether the participants who are undertaking this type of the training, whether they will be accepted by the UGC. You know that all the participants are engaged in different field, in different subjects also, in different institutions also. They have a question that whether this participation will be accepted or certificate will be accepted by the UGC.
Can I answer this question, please? Can I answer this question?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes.
I think Professor Asit Kumar Das, sir, will agree with me. Sir, both the organizations are national. Ours is a central university, so certificate will be very much accepted by any college or the university, and also it can be claimed abroad. This certificate is valid. It is an international workshop, online.
Okay. Professor Agarkar, please continue.
Yeah, I think if Professor Asit Kumar or Agar sir would like to add, they can add something.
Okay, just we'll add, no problem. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, so we now have Dr. Sibsankar Jana, who is going to give us planning details of the workshop and other things. So,
Okay.
Professor Jana?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Okay. Actually,
we'll mute now.
Actually, we being the editors and reviewer of some reputed journals, and mainly for IISRR International Journal, we have gathered huge experience and found that most of the research scholars, have little knowledge about writing the research article. They may be a good researcher, but side by side they have to know some techniques and tools to conduct and write the research article. Therefore, one fine morning, we with our other member of the IISRR, we have decided to conduct such type of workshop where we should cover every aspect related to the writing a research article, conducting a research for peer review journal, and it should be based on the discussion come hands-on training. Okay, and we have intelligently organized all the facet of the art of writing research article, and accordingly allotted classes in this workshop. We have assigned each lecture like L1, L2, and etc. And however, due to some non-availability of the few expert in the specified class slot, we will not be able to maintain the seriality of the lectures. But we are trying, and you all know that basically the first chapter of a book is basically the introduction or overview or philosophy. Okay, therefore the day one, that is inaugural session, and the technical session will cover the overview and philosophy of the research, and rightly the Holbrook and other Professor Mohanta, Professor Holbrook, Professor Ghosh, and Fatima, they nicely explain all the overview of the research and how to write the research article. So day one onward, we have logically arranged different aspect of the research, like from topic selection, scope, research objective, research question and problems, searching the related literature or review of literature, research methodology, sampling technique, questionnaire, and statistical analysis of the collected data using the SPSS or PSPP software and anti-plagiarism software, citation management, reference manager software or tools, and some related ideas. And one thing I would like to share, that is all participants were asked to submit an article or outline of an article before the beginning of this workshop, and many of them have already submitted the same. Others are requested to send their articles immediately. Actually, our intention to equip all the participants in such a way that they can revise and rewrite the article sent earlier, and they will be given 15 days more after completion of the workshop to modify and revise the article using the tools and techniques we have learned here. And the good and quality articles, after passing through obviously peer review process, will be published in our IISRR International Journal of Research in special or subsequent issues. Okay, so we have actually 106, that the 106 participants were actually registered in this workshop, but now I am seeing that only 50 is present here. I wish a grand success of this workshop and hope all the participants will enjoy a lot, and also hope that all will apply the acquired knowledge about the use of tools and techniques for writing and conducting research and writing articles further. Okay, once again I welcome you all to present here. Thank you.
I'd like to add something with Dr. Jana, that we asked article from each participant, because we will go through primarily how they have right and what are the defects, but we should not communicate to them. They will be asked to modify that article of their choice, what he or she has written, and ask them to modify, remodify, and re-edit according to the hands-on activities and deliberations of our resource person. And finally, on Sunday, that is 21st, we asked them, there will be a free session. One lecture will be delivered by Professor Goel from Gujarat University, and one from USA, but we are not sure he will be available or not. However, we will be in a group. Any student, any participant can ask any question. Webinar will be open. What difficulty they face to edit that article, and we would request them to prepare a PPT of 5 minutes. What that means, how they would present their article. Though 106 participants had registered, I have also asked so many questions from participants. I deliberately avoid such questions. This seminar or workshop is not for issuing any certificate. We'll give the certificate, but our aim and main motto is to develop themselves, inculcate the culture of writing article, not issuing the certificate. So we will not give any answer about the certificate, because most of the cases students participate for a certificate. For 8 days, there is about 30 resource persons, and certificate will issue to them. Those attendance is about 75 in this workshop. We are recording all these things. Otherwise, we will not issue the certificate. Mere for certificate, this workshop is not for me. So, and the quality article will be published in the second special issue. First special issue will be the articles and the deliberations from the resource persons, because there are 30 resource persons. Then the best or the quality articles. If there is no quality, we'll give them instruction to modify, remodify. If in that article is not published in the second special issue, we'll give them opportunity for the subsequent issues. We think no student or no candidate is unable to write a good article, quality article. He or she should write a good article. There may be some lacunas. If we try jointly to inculcate all the ingredients of writing a good article, we think they will be successful. Okay, Professor.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. Thank you, Asit sir, for clarifying a few things. We are now coming almost close towards the closing of this activity. We started at about 12 o'clock and it's now 3:36. It's more than 3.5 hours we have been discussing. Of course, the sessions were very intellectual, very effective, very informative, and we enjoyed attending all of them. So we now have a pleasant duty to do, and that is what we call Thanksgiving. I am sure the person who has been earmarked for this is Mr. Debashish Paul will do his job. But before that, let me thank Professor Asit Das for putting up such a wonderful program. It has been a pleasure to chair this session, and it has been a pleasure to listen to all these experts. And I am sure there would be more and more sessions. As he said, he has identified 30 resource persons. It's not a small job. 30 resource persons from different fields, different areas, different locations. Bringing them together is not a small job which he has done. So he needs a round of applause from all of us. Let me first do it for Asit sir. And now
it is a joint effort.
Yeah, okay. So joint effort. So I'll now hand over the responsibility to Debashish Paul. Is he here? Is he around?
Debashish?
Debashish?
Can you hear me?
For a formal vote of thanks. I don't see his name here.
Yes, Debashish.
Debashish, yeah. No, I don't think. I don't see him here. So what Asit sir, what do we do?
Yes,
I don't.
Any feedback from any person? Just I am calling him.
Yeah. Is Mr. Ramani Burman available?
Yes.
That we have been trying because so what has happened is he has put his laptop on and he has disappeared from his chair. So I see his name here, but actually I don't know whether he's listening to what I am saying.
We can ask any participant to say if just a please. He's entering.
Okay. So
university, as he's the joint minister.
Yeah.
Just within 2-3 minutes. So prior to that, any participant or any resource person would like to add anything? Professor Soroshi there? Professor Da?
Yeah, he's there. He is speaking.
Yeah.
He has unmuted now. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it is a very good going on and very wonderful discussions, particularly Professor Halbrook and Professor Sadhan Kumar Ghosh of Jadavpur University and Madam. Madam has up to date about the banking system of CBCS regarding transfer of credit bank system. So definitely it will be a new era of collaboration in the context of credit banking system. So definitely, it has been in the new education policy and recommendation has been submitted, and it has been given in the Paras UGC website for comments.
Yes.
So I think it will definitely a new era for the researchers and for the students in the days to come, and we will be looking forward to have definitely for these collaborations will play with a vital role. If
Yes,
we
sir.
don't have collaboration with a particular university, we could not have credit transfer. Nobody can doing anywhere and will transfer those credit for that. There might be collaboration, definite part, syllabus, etc. everything. And I will request both the directors and joint directors, after having accepted by the finalization by the credit bank transfer system, we have another workshop on this aspect, particularly how we can proceed. This is really a very good initiative on the part of the Department of Education, Government of India, so far as transfer of credit is concerned and credit banking. And for that purpose, since 2014-15, it has become mandatory on the part of UGC to introduce CBCS in all the colleges, all the universities, all the academic programs. So this is one of the new aspects. We will be looking forward for a successful workshop in the days to come. Thank you.
Yeah. Is Debashish joining? Asit sir.
Yes. Just within 1 minute, she is coming.
Yeah. No, because then anyway. So what we are now we are coming towards the end of the first day session, but at the same time the entire schedule has been communicated to the participants. So I would urge all the participants to attend the session fully. I see some people leaving in the middle. I really do not know
Ramani
why.
Professor
Ramani Varman.
Asit sir,
Professor.
Agarkar sir, please can you leave the meeting? I have another meeting at 4 o'clock. Okay, it was nice meeting you all virtually.
Thank you.
So looking forward. Sir, welcome to Manu again. Asit sir and Agarkar sir, anybody for academic and research endeavors, please, you are welcome to Manu. Do visit Hyderabad.
Oh, certainly. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, your guest house is too nice.
Oh, interesting. I must.
Asidda, Sibsankar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Asidda,
take care.
Sibsankar bolchi. Just a minute. Devasita, just a minute. Okay, actually, one announcement is if anyone not in the formal dress, please off your video.
Yes.
Okay, so it is very odd looking.
Asit sir, it seems Ramani Burman has joined.
Yes, Ramani, can you hear me?
No, we have been. See, sir, we have been looking for you for a long time. Your name was appearing here, but you were not seen. So we would like you to comment on the deliberations that we had. Professor Ramani Burman. You have to unmute.
Ramani.
You have to unmute first.
Unmute.
Provasis, unmute. Provasis, you can unmute him. You can unmute him, Ramani Burman.
Can I do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah,
no,
we can
I
do
cannot.
it.
No, I cannot do it. I tried, but only the host will be able to do it. Wait. Only host and co-host will be able to do it.
Prof, can you hear me?
Yes.
Please unmute Ramani Varman.
It's not possible to comment.
Yeah. Oh, good. Good. Welcome, sir.
Welcome, Ramani Varman. He's from Bharat University and director.
It is a nice meeting, actually.
Please, Professor Varman.
Go ahead.
Okay, it is a nice meeting. I congratulate all of you, including Mr. Asis. It is actually a nice. It is a nice place where we can learn so many things regarding research study. How we can develop our system and the internationally accepted research journal. I congratulate all of you in such a way you are presenting your ideas. So our students can easily take the opportunity and can lead their paper in an international accepted way. I thank you, all of you, and I congratulate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you, sir. Now, Debashish, it's your duty to say formal vote of thanks. Debashish is here. Okay, Debashish.
Secretary of our Indian Institute of Social Reform and Research and joined finance officer of Jadavpur University. Previously, he was the finance officer of Sikkim Central University. Okay, Professor.
Thank you, Professor Agarkar. Thank you, Professor Das, for giving me the responsibility of vote of thanks. So I am really delighted to join this type of program, though I am not directly associated with publication or research activity, but as the finance people in the university system, we have to always support all this type of research activity, starting from publication grant to the closing of the research project. So we are always associated with the research and publication activity in the university system. So thank you. I would like to thank Professor Rahmatullah, Vice-Chancellor of Mannu, Hyderabad. He has spared some time for this program. We are lucky enough to associate with Mannu for our this 8 days program for technical issues on the publication matter. Really, the people are enjoyed with his keynote speech. Thanks to Professor Soroshi Mohanta, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, and our well-wisher always for giving his important times for this program. Thanks to Professor Agarkar, who is always with us, and even today from the morning to the evening, he is with us. Thanks to Professor Agarkar. Especially thanks to Jack Holbrook. So he is one of the guide, one of the philosopher, and the always mentor of our institute, and he has nicely presented what will be the key technique. Basically, the young scientists, young researcher, young scholars, they are benefited to what way one good publication would be made. So what will be the keyword, what will be the abstract, and what is the limitation of the abstract. He has rightly presented to the scholar, and scholars are benefited from his good speech. Thanks to the other scholars and the Vice Chancellor and experts of different field, Professor Sadhan Ghosh, Jadavpur University, he has rightly pointed out the modern techniques of plagiarism techniques, and the problem in this area 20 years before, it was not so well technique to identify the plagiarism. Now we are trying to make transparent way to make publication. So Professor Ghosh has rightly pointed out, and Professor Dilip Mohanta, former Vice-Chancellor, Kalyani University, sir has given time, and every time we are really indebted to Professor Mohanta for his good speech in this area, and because he is one of the pioneer in the area of philosophy in our society, that he made some of the good conversation in the Sanskrit Gita and Veda. Always we know some idea of our ancient knowledge of the research and research issues. Thanks to Professor Ramani Burman, we are really. I have seen from the day beginning. Professor Burman is one of the participants, like young researcher, always need some type of support from this program. So thanks to Professor Burman and other distinguished personnel, and thanks to the participants for which this type of program is being organized in collaboration with Manu, because without your active participation in this type of program, this type of our program, we could not be made successful. So I would request the participants to convey this message to the other participants, so that they will participate in the from tomorrow technical session, from tomorrow onward. Because I have seen many times scholars and researchers are always try to start initiate their publication issues, and at the beginning stage, really every scholars are facing so many difficulty from his own personal motivation or personal hesitation, and at the end, at the senior level also, it is not so easy to publish a good publication in a good reputed journal. So this distinguished personalities and distinguished expert in different fields, and from their lecture, all these type of scholars will be benefited. We are expecting so. Thanks to the technical team and the co-coordinator Sibsankar, Jana, and other people, those who have really supported to this technical issues, because we are now only dependent on this type of technical forum. Otherwise, we cannot convey this type of program. And especially thanks to Dr. Das, because
Professor Sikandar, Professor Sikandar, and Habibur Rahman from Bangladesh.
Professor Rahman and Professor Sikandar, and also Professor Fatima, the Dean of Manu. So all are heartily participated and contributed to today's program. So thanks to all experts as well as the participants and my dear technical team. Without help of the technical team, we cannot make this type of program. So I expect this technical team will support for the next 7 days program also. So thanks to all the experts and the participants.
Dr. Prabhashish Mondol, Ashish Samanto, and Nivedita Sarkar, 3 are mainly a technical responsibility they have taken.
So thank you all.
Good. So I think it's time to say goodbye for today.
And for tomorrow, most welcome all of you. And I would request our core team will meet today at 9:30 in the evening for tomorrow's preparation. Sibsankar, is it okay? Promises?
Yeah.
So, namaste to everyone and goodbye.
Okay.
See you tomorrow morning. Tomorrow,
okay.
12 o'clock.
Sursida, Ramani, all the participants. Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay.